I can do what I want when I want to do it. I can do what I need when I need to get through it. When I need someone else, can't be too proud for help, but gotta look after myself. Sometimes it can get lonely, never living in the moment. When the sun is shining, hope that I'm reminded, like how the clouds keep changing. I'm always steady rearranging, going back to the basics of what a good day, what a good day is. And that's exactly what the day is, but it's exactly what you make it. So please don't go wasting, and I'll do the same, even if it's raining. How could I complain? And my feels got me feeling some type of way. You always free to take a break. Hope you feel what I felt. You gotta look after yourself. Sometimes it can get lonely, never living in the moment. When the sun is shining, hope that I'm reminded, like how the clouds keep changing. I'm always steady rearranging, going back to the basics of what a good day is. Of what a good day is. What a good day is. And that's exactly what the day is.
All right, y'all, we are in the building. You know what to do. Drop a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. Drop a 1 in the chat if you can see me. We are getting into it. Hopefully y'all are doing well. Oh, we're looking all crispy and clean on the screen. Welcome, y'all. Welcome back to another YouTube live stream and another episode of the Classy Morning Show. I'm your host, Classy Beats of ClassyBeats.com, and today we have an amazing show for y'all. We are going to jump right into the coverage of the TAY trial. We'll get into that. Also, today is officially Free Yak Gotti Day. Man, today, the one defendant that was found not guilty on all counts is finally going to be let go. Well, hopefully. It is insane to say, and I cannot believe that Yak Gotti has been in jail for what, 4 months, 4+ months now since he was found not guilty on all counts during this YSL trial. Today, he does have a hearing. I'm still looking to see if we can find live coverage of that. If we don't, I'll give y'all updates when we get a final decision on that. I'll keep y'all up to date as well. But yeah, Free Yak Gotti today, man, all day. Y'all put Free Yak Gotti in the chat. But before we get into the coverage, I gotta say what's up to the people, man. So shout out to everybody who's in here. Y'all know my awesome, amazing Amy's in the building. First thing, showing some love. Thank you for being here, Amy. I appreciate you. We got Jay Bugmaster, Taco Tuesday, Libby22 SC Girl. We've got Kara Hampton in here. Mr. Brown is in the building. Good morning. We've got Lexi. Good morning. We got Tatum. Shout out to Tatum. A Fitz is up in here. We've got Hilya in the building. Shay is back at it. Good to see you, Shay. We've got Nicole Brewers in the building. Good morning. And then we also have our first super chat of the day. Kara Hampton up in here, showing some major love, dropping the 10 bomb. Big shout out and thank you to Kara Hampton for the support. She is always in here every single day, joining the live stream, showing some love. Kara, I appreciate you, and thank you for all the love and support that you show to the channel. As y'all see, I will be reading super chats throughout the show, so thank you to everybody who sends in super chats as well. Also, on your way in, I see all 100% of y'all have done it so far. If you could, please make sure you like the video. Not only is it free, not only is it the biggest way you can support the channel, but it does let the algorithm know that you guys are enjoying the show. It shares the video and the channel out with more people. So As more of y'all are joining the show, if you could just take 2 seconds to like the video, it really does help us out and I appreciate it. Also, look at y'all showing mad love up in here. We've got Libby22. Libby22 SC girls in here. She says, ClassE and Amy and the family, thank you for your hard work. We love you all. Shout out to Libby22 SC girl. We love and appreciate you. Thank you so much for the support as always. Libby's always in here showing love too. My dog, Mr. Brown with the 20 bomb. Dang, Mr. Brown. He didn't even have a comment. Shout out to Mr. Brown showing love with the 20, man. Just wanted to show some support. I appreciate it, Mr. Brown. And as y'all know, Mr. Brown just went through a major surgery. So please make sure y'all keep Mr. Brown in your prayers for a speedy recovery. Thankfully, he's doing well over here. He's been in the chat ever since he was able to post-op. So shout out to Mr. Brown. Thank you for the love and support that you show here as well. It's always good to see your commentary and thoughts in the chat as well. Y'all give it up one time for Mr. Brown up in here. I appreciate you, man. Tay Marie is in the building. What's up, Tay Marie? That name sounds familiar. I think I may have heard your name over on Lead Attorney's channel. And shout out to the lead, man. We need him back. Y'all, I got to bring TLA out of retirement. You know what I'm going to do? If he doesn't do Karen Reed, which I think he might, I'm going to hit him up. We're going to bring him out of retirement for a couple live streams because that we cannot have too many days without TLA streaming. So I'm going to see what I can do over here. We've also got Michi in the building. You know what time it is. Dropping the 5 bomb. Michi says, free Yak Gotti. Thank you for covering all that you do. Thank you, Michi. And thank you for being a consistent supporter as well. Always love seeing your comments and thoughts in the chat, and you continue to show love as well. So shout out to Michi in the building as well. Thank y'all for being here to support, because otherwise I would just be up here live streaming and talking to myself, you know? And I've done that before. Yes. Yeah, TLA, he's still on YouTube. He just hasn't been, he was live a couple weeks ago, but we got to get, I'm gonna hit up the lead and we'll bring him up here during Karen Reed if he's not busy, because he might pop up. You know how he does. He might pop up and start covering it. So we'll see what he does. I think this is going to be, Karen Reed is going to be what YSL was in 2024. So there's going to be a lot of people covering this trial. Y'all know, thanks to Judge Bev, we are going to be here covering it from start to finish every single day, because I think they're starting at 9 and going until 4. So that's right in my content creation wheelhouse. So we're going to be here covering Karen Reed every single day. It's going to be fun. Alexis says, is Yak trial streaming or no? I don't know. I haven't been able to find it. I've seen reports, but I can't say anything for certain. So I'll keep an eye on it as we're going through TAY. And then if I do see that there is a live stream, I'll cover it. And if we get the results, or if we get the decision on what happens during his plea hearing, then I will give that to you as well. All right, so I think we're good. Again, thank you so much to everyone who's liked the video so far. Nearly 100% of y'all liked the video. Y'all know what time it is. Thank you so much, and shout out to the super chats. Again, I'll be reading super chats throughout the show. Let's go ahead and get back into it. So we were going to start day 6 yesterday, but I had a feeling it was going to be a short day. So we took a little bit of a break after we finished up day 5. Now we're going to get into the continuing of day 6. Now, y'all saw, we got to hear from the ex-stripper, I guess we'll call her, the end of day 5. And then she had to come back yesterday and testify. So we're going to get into the rest of her testimony. And then as trial proceeds throughout today for day 7, we'll get to that as well. All right, let's check this out and see what she has to say in the rest of her story.
John Hunter, Jerry Goldstein, Thomas Lane, Mr. McIntyre, Your Honor. Mr. President.
Are you Mr. McIntyre?
Yes, ma'am.
Are both parties ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
All right, if you could have your witness just retake the stand.
And also, I guess I need to give y'all a little bit of a refresher too. So what was happening the end of day 5 was there was a back and forth between the defense, the judge, and the prosecution about showing this witness her interrogation video. It was clear the defense did not want to show her that. They're obviously either trying to impeach her or there's certain things in the video they don't want to say. We don't know for sure yet, but they were going back and forth about that. Finally came to a resolution. The judge said, show her the video. I want to put some respect on her name, but I'm going to call her the ex-stripper. I mean, I'm sorry. It is what it is. So she went, she sat down, she started to view the video. Now today, I actually think we're going to get to see and hear some of her interrogation by the police. So that's where we're at moving forward with this one. The stripper.
All right, everyone, please be seated. All right, you're still under oath. And if you could just restate your name for the record, please.
Joanna Reyes.
All right, make sure you keep your voice up so that members of the jury can hear. All right, defense, I believe it's still your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right, Ms. Reyes, when we left off yesterday, I had asked you if you had previously told the detective that you knew that Mark getting into the car had the intention of having sex with you. Do you recall that question?
No, sir.
Okay.
Talking about
well,
the
let me ask you
photographer.
again. When Mark got into your car, you knew that his intention was to have sex with you, right?
No, sir.
But that's not what you told the detective, correct?
No.
You had an opportunity to review your video yesterday after court
Yes, sir.
in its entirety?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to call your attention to about 50
we go.
minutes and 39 seconds into that. So mine get that. You got those.
So we're actually going to see the video.
Hey, there was two toothbrushes all in there.
All of ours.
Okay, so everybody had a toothbrush in there?
The ones that was normal was mine.
What do you mean normal?
But because they had vibrating toothbrushes. The ones that like.
So the vibrating ones are there?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I know it's gonna be kind of
Audio
a
is
stretch for you to
bad.
remember, but you said that the guy had a roll of condoms?
Yes.
What color?
I didn't look back.
So let me answer, did you see the roll of condoms?
I didn't see it.
Did you see the lube?
I didn't see none of it. They just said it.
So what did they say?
They just said, were you trying to rape her and this and that? Or maybe I did Tamar showed me the roll of condoms, but that was it. And I don't know if they were black or gold, I can't remember really. But he was just like, were you trying to rape her and this and that, and that was it. And that's the only
Let me
thing.
ask you, do you think the dude had some condoms in his backpack? Show
No, he just thought he was gonna fuck. That's just that's of course men. Some men. Yeah, but that's of course some men. Like, I didn't think that far into it, but that that was just I like I said, I never looked back.
Yes,
I never
you
looked
did.
to the side. Nothing.
Come on, lady, stop the
I was
cap.
scared.
So you told the
Stop
detective
the
that
cap.
you thought he was going to fuck, right?
Because he was interpreting that.
I'm asking you that you interpreted him as having interpreted he was planning on having sex with you, correct?
Because he said that.
And you saw that there were, in fact, condoms in the man's backpack after this was all over,
I
right?
never saw anything that was in the backpack.
You heard the portion where you said that Tamor showed
She
you the
about to
condoms,
cry
right?
again.
Yes, but I didn't see anything else that was in the backpack.
And the reason why Mark thought that he was going to have sex with you is because that's what you led him to believe, correct?
Objection, speculation, she can't testify to what.
There's nothing speculative about what she previously said.
Oh, they're getting in trouble now. That's not speculation. Did you lead him to believe, yes or no, that you were going to, you know, it's not that complicated. What's up, legend? I want to know what the judge is saying.
All right. So, defense, ask your question and then state if there's an objection to it, you can make your objection.
Should be no
And I'll give
objection.
the defense a chance to respond to that objection, and I will make a point. So, ask your question, defense.
Mark thought he was going to have sex with you because you had led him to believe that's what was going to happen that
Okay,
day, right?
now that's
No.
an objection.
Objection,
That's an objection.
no speculation.
All right. The objection, the witness has already answered. Ask your next question.
Thank you, Judge. Yesterday, to recap, we talked
That
about
is
the fact that
speculation.
Mark had tried to contact you on Instagram some time back before this incident, correct?
Correct.
And he had contacted you, right?
Correct.
And that resulted in you blocking him from your Instagram account, right?
Correct.
Because his account was largely pornographic in nature, right?
Objection, that's been asked and answered, and speculation.
All right, that would be, the objection to asked and answered will be overruled.
You can answer
Oh,
the question
wow.
now.
All right, Judge Boy. She's playing ball today.
After you blocked him, you created a different Instagram account, correct?
Yes.
In fact, you've created several different Instagram accounts over the years, right?
No, sir.
You've only created one new Instagram account?
I believe so. I've changed the username for my safety, but I only have one other account.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna take a soft poll. All right, that was a terrible way to phrase that. Either way, we're gonna have a questionnaire. How many Instagram accounts do y'all have, or do you want to admit? In the comments, chat, let me know. How many Instagram accounts do you have as a? Well, I would assume most of y'all aren't ex-strippers anyway. Jeez, we're going off the rails today.
Okay, but, so you've changed the username multiple occasions, right?
Yes, sir.
And so you eventually, through a different username, made contact with Mark again, or he made contact with you? Which was it?
I messaged him.
Okay. And you discussed doing a photo shoot, right?
Correct.
And you and he asked you about doing the photo shoot in lingerie and underwear, right?
Correct.
And you advised the detective of this fact and the fact that you knew that that was the kind of photography he was into, correct?
Correct.
And so when Mark showed up at the car, he was surprised to see that there were all these other people in the car besides you, right?
No, sir.
That's why he called off the photo shoot, wasn't it?
He said he had to reschedule because he had another person.
But he didn't text you that, did he?
No.
He told you that in person, inside your car, after you all had driven to pick him up for the photo shoot, right?
Correct.
So the only thing that had changed between the time that you talked to him before and the time he got in your car was that there were 3 dudes in the car with you, right?
Can you say that again?
The only
Or
difference
rephrase it?
between when you arranged for him to meet you for this shoot and when he got in the car was that there were 3 dudes in the car, right?
He knew there was people there.
Let me ask you a question. Can I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what I've marked as Defendant's Exhibit 10. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes.
Who are the people depicted in that photograph?
My ex-boyfriend?
And you?
I
Yes.
object to relevance, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I'm laying the
City.
foundation.
Would I could see the exhibits, please?
Yes, he's getting ready. Good morning, y'all. They're struggling with this with this witness. Did Judge Boyd roll her eyes? She's sick of John, man. John is up here killing it though. All right, let's skip ahead through all of this and get back to the scripper.
Correct?
Now we cutting up today.
Correct.
It's Wednesday. We're gonna
Correct.
act out a little bit.
Of course, after...
I said the objection is overruled.
Thank you, Judge. So you spent time with Mr. Horace after the offense day of April 23rd, 2017, right?
Correct.
And it was a lot of time, correct?
Correct.
You actually at one point moved to Houston to be with Mr. Horace, correct?
Correct.
And during that time period, you discussed aspects of this case and your involvement. Do you recall that?
No.
Did you tell Mr. Horace that
Objection, calls for hearsay, both hearsay and improper impeachment.
it's
What?
not
You didn't
improper
finish the
impeachment?
question.
Under 613, I have to confront her with the substance of her prior statement.
Objection is sustained.
Wow.
Oh, we're gonna take it on a second. You testified a moment ago that Mark knew that there would be men in the car with you, correct?
Correct.
But that is not what you told Mr. Horace, is it?
Objection, hearsay.
That'll be overruled.
That is not what you told Mr. Horace, is it?
I never told him anything besides that I had a case.
Okay. You never told Mr. Horace that you intended to get Mark to come for the photo shoot alone with you?
No, sir.
Now, you testified previously that you did not know Mark except as an acquaintance on Instagram, correct?
Correct.
But that's not what you told Mr. Horace, is it?
Yeah, just
That is
what
not
he
true.
said.
You told Mr. Horace that you've known Mark since high school, right?
No, sir. I knew him because of high school. He was older than us.
That's what I'm asking. Because of high school, you knew of him?
Of him, correct.
And you also told Mr. Horace that he had tried to violate you on a prior occasion, correct?
No, I did not.
And you also told Mr. Horace that you didn't tell Mr. McIntyre or any of the other people in the car about this past interaction with Mark before getting in the car with him that day to pick him up, right?
No, sir.
And you also didn't tell Mr. McIntyre or anybody else that you secreted a gun underneath your seat in the car when you went to go pick him up that day, right?
That is not true.
You also didn't tell Mr. Horace that when he got in the car, you told everybody in the car about the fact that Mark was a pornographer and that he had done creepy things and that he had tried to do creepy things with you while you were in high school, right?
I never said that.
Oh, Lord.
And you also didn't tell anybody in the car, well, let me back up. You told Mr. Horace that when Mark told you that the photo shoot was called off, there was a demand to look into Mark's backpack to see if he really was a photographer, right?
No, sir.
And you told Mr. Horace that when you looked into the backpack and there was an examination of this camera, that you found child pornography in it, right?
Objection.
No, sir.
Objection, wrong. Can we
Sustained.
approach, please?
Yes, you may approach.
Jeez. He said she found what? Oh, she looks so mad. What is going on here? I mean, if she said that in the...
It's all right. Y'all step outside. Remember the court's previous instructions, all right? Y'all can step out.
What's up, Slim? Yo, what is going on here? And she's getting upset again. Look at her. Why is she so bad? She looks like a toddler that just got told they couldn't have dessert. She's like, she's being mean to me. I know she's thinking about that deal that she signed with the district attorney's office. He's messing up her deal. We can't have that. It's tough being a snitch, man. Is she shaking her head? She's upset. Snitching ain't for everybody.
All right, everyone, please be seated. All right, defense. The state filed a motion in limine. Defense, you were aware of the state's motion in limine. And I informed both parties, either side, if you have a motion in limine, before you enter into any territory that's the subject of a motion in limine, that you approach. And the reason why I do that is because, as both parties know, I do not know what the evidence is in your case. I don't know any facts of the case. I'm hearing this case as the jury is hearing it. And in the state's motion in limine, on page 2, it states, the state requests that the court grant this motion in limine and instruct the defense counsel to approach the bench and present the proposed evidence outside the presence of the jury before voir dire, opening statement, questioning, or in any manner bringing any witness or evidence of any of the following matters. And the number one thing says, any crimes, wrongs, or bad acts of the victim, Mark Anthony Saldivar. So, defense. It appears to the court that you violated the motion in limine, unless you're going to try to tell the court that possession of child pornography is not a bad act.
Your Honor, what I'm trying to elicit from the witness...
No. The question is whether or not you were aware of the motion in limine, which you were, and whether or not you violated it in regards to violation of condition number 1. What you're trying to do with the witness, and excuse me, I'm going to have the witness step down. And counsel, you'll take your client to the back. You're still under oath and the rule has been invoked.
Judge Boyd ain't having it.
And what I can tell you, unless you have some photos of child pornography that you're saying that the complainant had, then you're just throwing questions out and you're violating the motion in limine. It clearly states that you all are supposed to approach. Now, unless you all think that child pornography is not a bad act, then I don't know why that's a crime. Because if you're saying it's not a bad act, you asked this witness a question and it involved child pornography. Did I hear that incorrectly?
You heard that correctly, Your Honor, and I'd like to also make aware to the court yesterday when we approached about my motion in limine, the court specifically regurgitated condition number 1 to defense in regards to the nude photos.
Your Honor, I understand that the court is of the opinion we violated the motion.
No, not of the opinion. You violated the motion in limine. The motion in limine says that you are to approach before questioning or in any matter bringing any witness or evidence of any of the following matters. Any crimes, wrongs, or bad acts of the victim, Mark Anthony Saldivar. And you're asking this witness about whether or not he had child pornography or something in his camera. The court considers that a bad act.
Your Honor, to be clear.
This is tough. This is tough because I would want to see this motion. Because yeah, he violated. I'm trying to help him out. It's a violation. God dang. Here we go. Let's see what his defense is for this.
Mark Anthony Saldivar. And you're asking this witness about whether or not he had child pornography or something in his camera. The court considers that a bad act.
Your Honor, to be clear, the questioning of the witness is intended to establish whether or not she previously made these statements. They're not being offered under Rule 613 for their truth. They're being offered for what she said to another individual.
You are still, what you're questioning her about is a bad act that she said that was the bad act of the complainant. And that's a motion in limine. And you all should approach before you do that. You violated the motion. The court is finding that you violated the motion in limine. And the only question now is how is that corrected? Because nobody approached the court to say, I'm going to start asking questions that is related to number one, to the state's motion in limine.
I understand the court's ruling. I've given my explanation for it. As far as the remedy is concerned, the court will do as it sees fit. I understand.
Oh, no, I am. But you're still, it appears to court, acting as though you haven't violated number one, and you have. You violated that motion in limine.
Your Honor,
and I can tell you, yes, counsel?
I think we're slightly, we understand the court's ruling. However, I do want the record to reflect, at least, that what we're asking is what the witness's previous statement. We are not accusing anybody of anything, and we're certainly not.
And I think that's fair. But still, I mean, this is it's a tough one. Y'all are saying he violated. I'm saying maybe he didn't violate, because bringing up a bad act is one thing. Like the question, were you aware that Mr. whatever his name is was taking pictures of kids? Like, okay, that would be bringing up a bad act. But what he's asking is, did you say to the police that you saw this on his camera? And I think that's where the defense may have a little bit of leeway here. Or there may be a little bit of a loophole. Because if that's what she said, you're not necessarily bringing up a bad act by just saying, oh, he's bad, he took pictures. It's what did you say that he did? This could go either way. I think the judge is probably going to have some more grace here, but
Witness's previous statement. We are not accusing anybody of anything, and we're certainly not trying to accuse Mark, and we will be happy to explain to the jury.
It's still a violation of the motion in limine. Hypothetically, if somebody were to ask for any defendant, not just your defendant, if somebody were to ask a witness on the stand, hey, by the way, and didn't you tell somebody else that the defendant had possession of child pornography, the defense would be objecting because it's a violation of the motion in limine. It's a violation of the motion in limine, in fact, in spirit.
Well, it is intended because this witness gave a number of prior statements. One to a police officer during an interrogation, which was video recorded. Another under oath before another judge in a different court.
But here's the thing: it doesn't matter to the court. What matters to the court is that it's a bad act, and all you all had to do was approach the court. I would have heard it, what you are seeking to get from this witness, and I would have made a ruling on it. But instead, you have people.
I don't know, because if that's the case, are they allowed to say, "Hey, did you see the victim, the alleged victim, stomping on the windshield"? Wouldn't that be a bad act? Did you see the victim? Did you say to police that you saw the victim doing such and such, fighting with TAY. I mean, isn't that a bad act? And him stomping on the windshield is a part of this entire trial. So, again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge, but I think I might side on the defense with this one. It's tough though. It's tough.
Who are violating rules, and I'm finding you violated the motion in limine rule. It's not supposed to be brought up until it's brought up to the court outside the presence of the jury.
The jury heard it,
what
though,
you
so
have
that
done
went either way.
is by bringing this up. I don't know if the jury's going to believe he was in possession of child pornography or not. I don't know if he was in possession of child pornography or not, because nothing has been presented to the court, and all you all had to do was approach the court and say, Your Honor, I believe we're going to go into number 1 of the state's motion in limine. And you know what I would have done? I would have had the jury step out, and I would have said, okay, what's the issue here? And you would have told me that, and I would have made a ruling.
I believe this came up yesterday.
No,
Yes.
Not the possession of child pornography.
The question of photographs on the camera
of nudes.
Right.
That's it, of nudes. And when we were here at the bench, I even told the state, okay, he has nude photos, allegedly. I said, how is that a bad act? Having a nude photo is not necessarily a bad act.
I see.
And both parties said, yes. Mr. Hunter, yes, Judge, you're right, it's not a bad act. And then we go a step further today, and now it's possession of child pornography. And I'm not going to allow you all to ask that question, and I'm going to instruct the jury to disregard.
We understand, Your Honor.
We understand. And there are some additional matters that she spoke of that have nothing to do with nudity or pornography. And
what would that be?
Your Honor, I don't believe that any other bad acts or potential bad acts of Mark Anthony Saldivar will be discussed other than those things which were discussed in opening statement related to the...
I'll determine whether it comes in or not. And you know why I'm going to determine whether it comes in or not? Because there was a state's motion in limine that says any crimes, wrongs, or bad acts of the victim, Mark Anthony Saldivar, you're to approach beforehand. And I need to make a ruling on whether or not it's relevant and whether or not it should be admissible. That's me. That's my job.
I understand your...
So what other acts or what other bad acts that you feel, crimes, wrongs, or bad acts of the victim, Mark Anthony Saldivar, that you feel this witness is going to be questioned about?
I can tell the court that it's going to be, and I don't know if there will be disputed or not, that he damaged the vehicle. I guess that could be considered a bad act. I want to...
Well, with regards to the damage of the vehicle, allegedly, it said that he put his foot through the glass of the vehicle. That's a part of this whole alleged offense and the offense date. So, counsel, you all know that if there's evidence that's going to come in that he damaged the windshield, that's already in through other people.
Right, and the issue of what she said with respect to that to our client, she says that she didn't say anything. She looked straight ahead, didn't look to the side.
All right, so here.
May I just finish?
We're getting off track. Where were the bad acts?
Well, I'm going to suggest that she has told people. And I believe if she says that's correct, that I never said anything other than that to Mr. McInnes, part of the race test of the offense, if she said something other than what she told the police officer, I believe that's a prior inconsistent statement, or we're entitled to ask her about it. It has nothing to do with pornography, sex, anything else.
Counsel, I'm not challenging anyone on inconsistent statements.
Okay.
I'm not challenging anybody on that. The court knows the rules of evidence. What I am saying is there's a motion in limine. And I think it's safe to say for the people who have been practicing even a year that you know you're not supposed to violate motions in limine. And number two, if there's an alleged offense and videos have been shown in exhibits that it's alleged to be, or maybe the jury feels it's already been established that the person who kicked in a window or damaged the window of a vehicle is the complainant, because witnesses have said it's the complainant who did that. So you all know, questioning the witness about that, that's really not about the motion in limine. The motion in limine is about your co-counsel violating it.
My able co-counsel, I can tell you if I can get 5 seconds, I believe he will go into next the matter of what was said
I think
that
they might be right on
precipitated
this.
the fight.
right, let
And
me just-
I don't think it's about anything, and I think we were entitled to ask the witness.
Let me just tell you,
Yeah,
you violated the motion in limine.
we got it.
You will not ask this witness any questions about child pornography on a camera unless you have
We agree.
proof
We're
that
not-
there's child pornography on a camera.
Well, by the way, we do have proof of that, and it was a legitimate question. However, for the court's ruled on it. That's
what
not
they're
what
trying to
I'm discussing. I'm talking about what we're going to do next. And
Yeah.
well, can't look into his mind. I presume since the court has ruled on it, we can make a bill later, but we're not going to do anything in front of the
Yeah.
jury. However, I do believe conversations, what she tells the police officer, what she tells the judge, if there's somebody that says you said something else, I believe that's fair game, that's impeachment. And all I don't want to do is, we shouldn't have to have the hearing like this before we ask every question.
No.
And if it doesn't involve child pornography or some extraneous offense, I think we're
No,
entitled.
you all have to have a hearing because it's a part of their motion in limine. You
Not
can't
if it's
just,
not an offense.
here's,
Or
yes,
misconduct.
and the last time I checked, possession of child
I
pornography
would agree.
is an offense.
And we're going to be chastised and the court's going to do something.
Oh no, my chastisement is just stating the law. There's a motion in limine in place and the defense has violated it.
I wouldn't be.
And I am not going to allow you
What do
to
y'all think,
ask
man?
questions about child pornography.
We're not going to do that based on the court's ruling.
Let's
However,
bring the
we
jurors
should
in.
be able
Your Honor,
to.
just in anticipation, the only other aspects of this questioning that I believe will venture into territory that the state might object to would be questioning about whether or not she had a hand in getting the gun into Mr. McIntyre's hands, if that is in fact what happened. And secondly, whether or not she is the source of the marijuana, which I'm not clear on.
All right, so here's the thing. This is, and let me just tell you, this is what well, I'm going to say this.
She was asked that.
This is what I'm going to say, and I want you all to listen to me clearly. Both sides have been practicing law for more than 2 seconds. Everyone here knows that if you're asking questions and those questions are related to what's already been brought in evidence, the marijuana,
They can't ask questions because there was a motion.
it's already in there. It's already in the evidence. Who had it, what they did with it. Yeah, you can ask questions about that.
And guns. And go.
The gun, it's already there. But I don't want any deflections where people are pretending as though they don't know that they violated the motion in limine. So I'm bringing the jury back in, and I'm telling them to disregard the last question. I'm telling them to disregard any testimony or questions about child pornography. Does everyone understand?
Yes.
And the defense, you violated the motion in limine.
Dang. They're in trouble.
Oh, if you could have your witness take the stand, please.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witness was not in the courtroom while those discussions were happening?
Yes.
Thank you.
Just 1 second, I gotta bring the witness in. All right, you can bring the jurors in.
All right, for the jury?
Yeah, I don't know. How do y'all feel about that decision by Judge Boyd? I think it could have went either way. It was a nitpicky motion.
All right, everyone,
first
please be
place.
seated. And can I have counsel approach?
I mean, all they got was chastised. That's hilarious. They violated a court order, and she was just like, "Hey, stop that." Yeah, it's hard to unhear a question. I want to know what y'all think about this. Also, we might have some updates on Yak Gotti soon. I know what I'm hearing, but I want to wait until it's it's official. I've seen a couple things from some very reliable sources. So I'll give it a little while and I'll give you guys an update on that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the last question that mentioned the words child pornography, you are to totally disregard that question. Does everyone understand? Is everyone able to do that?
Yes.
You are not to consider it for anything. You are to totally disregard the question. And I don't believe
Disregard, there's my favorite legal
to
term.
The question was made, but if an answer to the question was made, you are to totally disregard that answer as well. Does everyone understand?
Yes.
Is everyone able to do that?
Yes.
All right, defense, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Reyes, you said that you didn't see
Gina
anything
has
other than the
3.
condoms
I've got like
that were
6.
shown to you, correct? In terms of the contents of his backpack?
Correct.
But you told the detective that there was a roll of condoms, lube, and a new outfit in the backpack, correct?
That's what Tamar said.
Okay, and you believed that, right?
No, I didn't believe anything.
You didn't tell the detective you didn't believe anything.
He asked me what was in the bag, and I said what was said to me.
So when you explained it, you were explaining it in terms
Let's
of what
roll the
someone else
tape.
told you, not in terms of what you believed to be in the bag?
Correct.
I'm going to call your attention to this segment of your statement.
And he was like, give me all your shit, this and that, and then, so the guy doesn't want to give him his stuff. And I was just like, what are you doing? And then he was just like, shut up. And he was like, give me your stuff. And then they started pulling the backpack away from him. And then that's when they opened it and saw all that stuff.
So what was in the bag? You said
There was a roll of condoms, a bottle of lube, and a brand new outfit.
Hey, Judge, sorry, just for the purposes of the record, what portion was that? I don't know.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, the VLC player numbers.
I believe that's 1641.
1641. Thank you.
So when Mark gets in the car, he says in your words he wanted to reschedule the photo shoot, right?
Correct.
But you proceeded to drive away from his house anyway. with
He
your
asked
car.
me for a ride to North Star.
Okay, so you were driving him to North Star Mall, which was where you were going anyway, right?
Correct.
And that obviously caused confusion in the car, correct?
Objection, speculation.
It's the same.
When he told everyone in the car that he was going to have to reschedule the photo shoot, there was a question in the car as to whether or not he was even a photographer, right?
Objection.
No, sir.
Hearsay.
That would be oral.
And that was when the demand was made to see the inside of the backpack, correct?
No, sir.
And it's then that the men found condoms and lube in the backpack, right?
I never saw it.
And again, Mr. McIntyre was your boyfriend at the time, right?
He said I was his
I didn't
girlfriend.
catch it.
Okay. You weren't dating Mr. McIntyre at all? That you don't recall your testimony from yesterday?
Yes, I recall it, but he would call me his girlfriend.
Okay. You were dating him, right?
So he says.
Okay. You dispute that now?
I always said I was never wanting to date him.
Okay. Do you recall your testimony
Oh my
yesterday?
gosh, lady,
Yes.
come
Do you
on.
recall saying that you were his girlfriend yesterday?
Yes.
Okay. So when they find the
She
lube
gonna
and the
break down
condoms in the
again.
backpack, that's when a physical altercation breaks out, right?
I never saw it, but yes.
And that's when you handed Tay Moore a gun, right?
No.
And that's what you told Mr. Horace, correct?
No.
And
Oh, God,
eventually,
what
as
is
the
going on?
struggle continued, that was when eventually Mark was ejected from the car. He's thrown out of the car, right?
I asked them to let him go after they were beating him.
And when we talk about they, Jalen Bell and Jeremiah Rodriguez were in the backseat of the car with Mark, right?
Correct.
They were the ones who had the easiest access to hit Mark, right?
So did Tamar.
Okay, so you described that Mark would have been sitting directly behind Tay Moore, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so when Mark gets out of the car, he jumps on the hood of the car, right?
Not immediately.
Right, he tries the doors to get back in first, correct?
Correct.
And then when that doesn't work, he jumps on the hood of the car.
Correct.
And while he's on the hood of the car, he begins to stomp the windshield, right?
Once we were in the Chick-fil-A parking lot, when Tamar told me to drive the car back and forth so
Objection,
I could get him
non-responsive.
off,
You finish the question. Answer
that's when he smashed the windshield.
that. Okay. And he was kicking the windshield, right?
He kicked it once.
And you said he was kicking the windshield at you, correct?
He kicked it once.
I'm asking you, have you said previously that he kicked it at you?
I don't know who he was kicking it at.
Okay.
This is the interesting story.
All right, man, I'm going to call your attention to roughly minute 7:05.
I'm gonna tell you everything. I made you this really. But what happened was I was the guy that I had Tamar, he messaged him through Instagram because he wanted us to get a photo shoot. So that's what we're messaging about. Then Tamar would take my phone and he would talk to him. Like Tamar had my phone the whole entire time. I barely got to talk to my mom, anybody. Anyway, so one day he was just like, okay, we're gonna go pick him up so we can have our photo shoot. I said, okay. So we went and picked him up. He asked me if I could just give him a ride to North Star. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And so we were going. And out of nowhere, we were at a stoplight and Tamar takes out a gun and tells him to give him everything. I didn't know this was gonna happen. I swear on everything, I didn't know this was gonna happen. And they all just started fighting. And I'm at the light and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I was like, please just let him out, just let him out. And they're pushing him out. And I think Tamar took out his backpack and opened it and took out everything inside of it. And what we found was a roll of condoms, a bottle of lube, and a whole brand new outfit. So he was like, just get him out of the car, get him out of the car. So they were pushing him out of the car, and he was like, no, I'm not going anywhere. And he was trying to get back in the car, and they were trying to push him back out. And the light was still red the whole entire time. And I was just there like, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. And Tamar was just like, shut up, shut up, shut up. And then I was just like, okay. And I was just at the wheel. And then they were pushing him out again, the lights finally turned green. I was like, okay, this is my chance to get away from this dude. So, and then he jumps on my hood. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do? And I still didn't know what to do. And Tamar was like, keep driving. And he pointed to the gun, he was like, keep driving. And I was like, no. I was like, I wasn't on the highway.
Oh my goodness. Like she's talking 1,000 miles an hour. I feel like I need to slow this down. Sheesh.
I made him wait. And he was like, no. He was like, pull over somewhere. So I pulled over and they had me eating Chick-fil-A. And the guy was just kept stopping on my hood and everything. I was trying to back up so he could get off my car. And I didn't know what to do. Like I really was just going back and forth because I didn't know what to do. And then the guy said something and he tried kicking me through the windshield. And then that's when Tamar did that.
What did he do?
He shot him.
So you told the detective that he was kicking at you through the windshield, right?
Correct.
And you also told the detective that you said we found condoms and lube in the backpack, right?
Is that what you told the police?
I never saw it myself, and I made that clear afterwards.
And in the course of that, roughly slightly after 8 minutes and 25 seconds into it, you say the phrase, and he pointed the gun at you. And I just want to get a sense of this. During the exchange, when Mark is on the hood of the car stomping, you told everybody in the car that you thought he had a gun, right?
No.
That's what you told Mr. Horace, though, right?
No, I didn't.
And that you were yelling, he's got a gun.
No, I did not.
That's when Tamar shot him, right?
No.
Boy, the prosecution's letting me lead this witness a
originally
lot.
indicated that you didn't know whether anyone had a gun in the car when you got in the car that day, right? You remember telling the detective that?
I said that Tamar and Jalen always carried a gun.
Okay, so you don't remember telling the detective that you didn't know anyone had a gun when you got in?
No.
And then later in the interview, you're asked about what gun Jalen Bell was carrying, and you specifically told the detective he was carrying a 9mm, right?
Yes, that's what he always carried.
After the shooting, as you're driving away, Jalen Bell had the backpack, right?
I don't know who had the backpack.
And you know that it was Jalen Bell who threw Mark's cell phone out of the car, correct?
So he said.
Okay, you didn't believe that?
I never saw it.
Did you tell the detective that Jalen threw the phone out of the window?
Correct.
Oh yeah, she's snitching.
And you know that it was Jalen who went through the wallet. I believe you testified to that fact yesterday, correct?
Correct.
Now, I want to get something clear. You testified that Mark got into the car with a backpack and a camera. You recall saying that?
Correct.
Was the camera in the backpack, or was it separate from the backpack?
I never saw.
You never saw a camera.
I knew he had a camera. He's a photographer.
But you say you didn't see it.
I didn't see if it was outside the bag or in the bag.
Okay.
Boy, they're going to impeach the hell out of this witness. Y'all are saying you think she's lying. This is tough. This is tough, man.
What's in Ector County? Odessa?
Yes.
What's there?
Objection relevance.
What's the relevancy?
She was apprehended in Ector County.
All right, objection sustained.
She said nope.
Where did you go? Where were you when you were arrested for this?
Odessa.
Okay. Why did you go to Odessa?
Objection relevance.
Overruled.
Kayla's friends took me over there.
Okay. Which friends?
Deja and Keon.
Okay. They gave you a ride?
Yes.
Did you have any family there?
No.
You have any connections there?
No.
Okay. After this incident, and after Tamor and Jalen left Jeremiah's house, you never saw Tamor again, right?
No, only through FaceTime.
Okay. But you often told others that you were unable to get a hold of Tamor on FaceTime, right?
Not true.
Okay. You weren't upset that Tamor wasn't responding to you or answering your phone calls?
Not at all.
You remember that you were at one point concerned that you might be pregnant, and you were trying to reach him and you couldn't get a hold of him?
No, they were manipulating me to think that I was.
Okay. You're referring to who when you say they?
Kayla and his dad.
Okay. You don't remember the night that Desiree found out she was pregnant?
Objection relevance.
It goes directly to what she's testifying to.
Sustained.
Do you not remember telling Desiree and Kayla that you thought you were pregnant?
No.
You don't remember Kayla and Desiree encouraging you to take a pregnancy test so you'd know one way or the other?
Kayla made me take a pregnancy test, yes.
Okay, and you weren't pregnant, right?
No.
Uh-oh.
When you left yourself...
So they weren't dating.
When you left San Antonio yourself,
That's crazy.
You went by way of the Greyhound bus, right?
Correct.
And your father took you?
Correct.
And you didn't tell your father that you didn't want to go to Dallas, right?
No.
And when you went up to Dallas, you stayed with Kayla and Desiree, right?
Correct.
And you called Kayla and Desiree and asked if you could stay there, correct?
I only stayed at Desiree's one night.
Okay, you stayed at Desiree's parents' house, right?
Answer the
Correct.
question,
They had a
lady.
barbecue, right?
No, they didn't.
They didn't offer you barbecue from a previous occasion?
No, I didn't eat.
Okay. While you were in Dallas, you were working as a stripper there too, right?
They made me, yes.
Okay. And in order to
I shouldn't laugh. I'm
dance in
sorry.
the Dallas strip club scene, you have to register your fingerprints and show your driver's license to an authority figure, to the county, right?
She was
No,
18,
sir.
he was 15.
Okay, you never went to the county to get your fingerprints taken?
Yes, but I didn't have to do that at the strip club.
Right, but you did it for your work at the strip club, right?
No, sir.
Okay, why did you go get your fingerprints taken in Dallas County?
Because they didn't ask for that.
I thought you just said that you did get your fingerprints taken.
For my ID.
Okay, well, you gave them your ID, right?
Correct.
And they photocopied it?
Correct.
Okay. And that was in order to get an ID for the strip clubs, right?
Correct.
To verify that you were old enough to dance, right?
Correct.
Okay.
The defense, I knew they were
That
going
would
to
have
cook
been,
this lady.
obviously, before
Oh,
you
God.
say that your bag and all of your identifiers were stolen, correct?
Correct.
Dang. What's your stripper name? Big Potato, y'all say? Come on, man. Don't do that. It was her car, so they made her drive the car too. They made her do
When you
all
were
this stuff.
interviewed by the detective, you indicated to the detective that there might have been some problem in your family with you dating an African American man. Do you remember
Objection, relevant, Your Honor.
Sustained.
that? It goes to bias here.
Sustained.
Please note my exception.
Don't bring no blacks around
Motion
here.
to disregard, Your Honor. You're instructed jury to disregard that
Right,
motion.
and disregard the last words from counsel. Does anyone understand?
Don't bring no
You asked the
ninjas
detective
around
if you
here.
could put money on your books so you could call your mother. Do you remember that?
He asked me if there was anything he wanted me to tell my mother, or he wanted him to tell my mother. And he asked me, should she put money on your books? I said, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so he was going to facilitate her putting money on your books. That's what that was about?
He said it.
Okay.
Stripper named Dora the Explorer.
Do you remember the day that you pled guilty to tampering with evidence in front of Judge Contreras?
Correct.
And you were asked questions by the prosecution related to this offense because they knew that it would probably be some time before you would have to testify in the case, right?
Correct.
And they wanted to, I believe, get a baseline of what your testimony would be at trial. Remember that?
Yes, sir.
She's lying.
And you were asked about the intent to rob and whether or not there was an intent to rob associated with this case. Do you remember that?
Correct.
And you told the judge and the prosecutor, I guess so?
After seeing it, yes.
Okay, but in your response to the question about whether there was an intent to rob, you said, I guess so, right?
Because it happened, I said, I guess so.
I'm just asking you, is that what you said in response to the question about whether there was an intent to rob? I guess so.
Correct, that was what I said.
And you don't remember how many gunshots were fired, right?
No.
So, at that hearing where you were testifying in front of Judge Contreras, you indicated that you barely knew Jeremiah, right?
I only knew him because of school.
But you did attend school with him, right?
Correct.
So you had known him for a long time.
I knew of him.
Okay, you had interacted with him before.
It's not like that.
Okay, I mean, when you say not like that, what you're
Just
saying
answer the
is you haven't
questions,
previously been
lady.
driving around town with guns and drugs in a car, right?
No.
But you've seen him in school, you've talked to him on multiple occasions, he's been to parties that you've attended as well.
I only saw him and hung out with him the time that we were at the gathering and after that.
Well, you knew that Jeremiah sold marijuana, right?
Yes.
You knew that Jeremiah carried a weapon, right?
Yes.
You knew that Jeremiah was a photographer himself and had his own camera, right?
Yes.
You stayed at his house, I believe you said for a couple of weeks, right?
It felt like a couple of weeks.
Well, how long was it in actual fact?
I couldn't know the time frame because we were always moving places.
Get your story
Okay, so you
together,
just
lady.
can't commit to how long you were there.
No, but it felt like a long time.
But then it was more than one night, for sure.
Yes.
Okay, when you say a couple of weeks, is that an estimate?
Yes.
He said a stripper named Dora the Explorer. That one messed up. Oh, man. Y'all is...
Pass the witness.
State.
Wow, they let her go.
If I could have a moment to get this. Ms. Reyes, I want to show you what has been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit number 126. This item that I'm pointing at, do you recognize what it is and who
Already
it belongs
explored.
to?
Oh my god.
Slides.
And who did those slides belong to?
Tamar.
Jesus.
Now, I want to talk to you about your interview with Detective
Come on,
Waters back
Amy.
on September 5th of 2017. During that interview, did you inform Detective Waters that you had told Mark Saldivar that you would be with at least 2 friends?
Yes.
Okay, and just going back to when you told Mark Saldivar that you would be with 2 friends, why did you say that?
Because I wanted to make him aware of who I was going to be with.
Okay, and when you showed up, you were with 3 friends. How did that third person get into the picture?
She was getting
Jeremiah
it in.
decided he wanted to go.
Okay. Can you please describe to the jury the relationship between the defendant and Jalen Bell?
Weird.
Were they friends with each other?
Best friends.
Okay.
She said
Did you
weird.
observe them staying together?
Yes.
And would you observe them together frequently?
All the time.
And, okay. Now,
She's
during
so
your
weird.
interview with Detective Juarez, did you inform Detective Juarez that the defendant was specifically looking for a photographer for a photo shoot?
Correct.
And during your interview with Detective Juarez, did you inform Detective Juarez that prior to what happened at the stoplight on McCullough, you had no knowledge of the defendant's intentions to rob Mark Saldivar?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In your statement to Detective Juarez, did you tell Detective Juarez that the defendant only told you that it was going to be a photo shoot?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In your statement to Detective Juarez, did you tell Detective Juarez that the defendant told Mark, "Give me all your shit"?
Yes, ma'am.
In that interview, did you tell Detective Juarez that Mark didn't want to give up his belongings?
Yes.
In that interview, did you tell Detective Juarez that they took Mark's backpack away from him?
Yes.
And when you say they, who do you mean?
Tamar.
Does that include anybody else?
Jalen.
In your interview with Detective Juarez, you stated that they opened Mark Saldivar's backpack. Is that correct?
Correct.
When you say they, who are you referring to?
Tamar.
Does that
Tamar
include anyone
and-
else?
Jalen.
And in your interview with Detective Juarez, did you tell Detective Juarez that they beat Mark Saldivar?
Yes.
And when you say they, who do you mean?
Jalen, Jeremiah, and Tamar.
In your interview with Detective Juarez, did you tell Detective Juarez that they threw Mark Saldivar out of the motor vehicle?
Yes.
And when you say they, who are you referring to there?
Jalen.
Now, in your interview with Detective Juarez asked you if Mark Saldivar was in possession of any weapons. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you tell him when you had the interview with him?
No, that he didn't look like a boy that would have weapons.
And in your interview with Detective Juarez, you further stated that you didn't believe that the defendant was acting in self-defense. Isn't that
Objection,
correct?
Your Honor, calls for ultimate opinion on a legal.
He's opened the door, Your Honor.
All right, that will be sustained as to
Sustained.
entering the province of the jury.
And I'd ask the jury to disregard the question and the answer.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you do disregard that last question and answer.
Motion for mistrial.
Denied.
Motion for mistrial every
Now,
time.
regarding, I want to go back to the album cover and your role in the album cover, okay? When we're talking about you being in lingerie, whose idea was that?
Tamar's.
And in your interview with Detective Juarez, isn't it true you told Detective Juarez that the defendant, Tamar
Is the lady
McIntyre,
really a
is the
victim?
one that made you agree to wear lingerie?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you spoke to Detective Juarez, isn't it true that you told him that the defendant was the only person that you saw with a gun on that day?
Yes.
And isn't it true that in that interview with Detective Juarez, you also informed him that the defendant was wearing a white shirt during the offense?
Yes.
And during that interview, you further stated to Detective Juarez that you observed the defendant shoot the guy on the hood of your motor
Objection
vehicle.
to leading, Your Honor.
Sustained.
In your interview with Detective Juarez, what did you tell him about who shot the person that was on the hood of your motor vehicle?
But I said Tamar did it.
During your interview with Detective Juarez, what did you tell him about Jeremiah Rodriguez and what he would sell?
She made some bad decisions. I
And
don't know
he
if
said
she's a victim.
marijuana.
And you further informed Detective Juarez that you knew that Jeremiah usually carried firearms, correct?
Yes.
Okay. During your interview with Detective Juarez, you also informed him that you, the defendant, and Jalen Bell were staying at Jeremiah Rodriguez's home for at least 1 week prior to the offense,
Objection,
correct?
leading, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Move to instruct the jury to disregard the question.
Ladies and gentlemen, disregard the
Motion for
question.
mistrial.
Motion for mistrial.
Denied.
There it goes.
When you spoke with Detective Juarez during your interview,
Motion for
who
mistrial.
did you tell him, what did you tell Detective Juarez about where you were staying with the defendant, Tamor McIntyre, and Jalen Bell?
Jeremiah's.
Okay. And when you were answering Mr. Hunter's questions, you kind of further expounded that you couldn't pinpoint an exact time frame, is that correct?
No.
But you're sure that you were there for some time, right?
Yes.
Okay.
You messed up, lady.
Now, in your interview with Detective Juarez, when you were asked who had the backpack when you were at the Mexican restaurant, do you recall who you told him had the backpack?
Yes.
Who was that?
Jalen.
And when Detective Juarez asked you about the camera that Mark Saldivar had, do you recall telling Detective Juarez what color that camera was?
Objection,
Yeah.
leading.
What color was the camera?
It was a white Canon.
And is that what you told Detective Juarez in your interview?
Yes.
All right. Now, Mr. Hunter asked you a question about whether you saw the camera when Mark got into the vehicle. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Do you recall the exact moment that you saw the camera?
No.
Okay. After the offense, when you all were at the Mexican restaurant, how'd you see the
Objection,
camera?
asked and answered and leading, Your Honor.
Overruled.
You can answer the question.
Yes.
So you saw the camera at the Mexican restaurant?
No.
Okay. Did you see the camera when y'all were at Jeremiah's house?
Objection, asked and answered, Your Honor.
Overruled.
You can answer.
Yes.
Okay. And when you were at Jeremiah's house, who had the camera at Jeremiah's house?
All the boys.
And when you say all the boys, who is that?
Jalen, Jeremiah, and Tamor.
Now, back to the Mexican restaurant. What did you observe Jalen Bell doing with Mark's wallet at the Mexican restaurant?
He was tossing all his stuff out.
And isn't that what you told Detective Juarez when you had your interview with him?
Yes, ma'am.
In your interview with Detective Juarez, you informed Detective Juarez that you, the defendant, and Jalen Bell got a ride from Starbucks to go meet back at Jeremiah Rodriguez's home.
Objection,
Yes.
leading, asked and answered.
The objection to leading will be sustained.
Okay. What did you
They
tell
didn't
Detective
object
Juarez
at all
about
while the
where you
defense
went
was
with the
leading.
defendant and Jalen Bell after leaving the Mexican restaurant?
I told them that
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
we went to the Starbucks next door, and Tamor was on my phone, and then a woman came and picked us up.
Now, I want to turn to you about, or talk to you about the defense counsel's line of questioning regarding whether you thought the victim, Mark Anthony Saldivar, had intentions of having sex with you. We saw the video published to the jury, but is this something that was suggested to you by the defendant?
No.
Okay. After the defendant and Jalen Bell went through the bag, what did they say to Mark regarding the items that they saw in the bag?
Tamor said, "What do you think that you were going to do? Did you think you were going to fuck?"
And on the statement that was played for the jury, you said once you were told the contents of the bag, you were shocked and didn't know what to think. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
All right. But in talking to Detective Juarez, you were kind of guessing as to what Mark's intentions were. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Okay. And you were kind of just stereotyping him in a stereotypical male way. Is that
I'm going to
correct?
object, Your Honor. This is leading, asked and answered, is functionally testifying.
She already answered
With
it.
regards to leading, the objection will be sustained.
Motion to instruct the jury disregard and say that it's possible.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here to disregard the last question.
Motion for mistrial.
Motion for mistrial.
Denied.
Every time.
When you met with Detective Juarez and gave your interview, isn't it true that back on that day in September of 2017, you told him back then that the defendant was threatening to kill you?
Yes.
Okay. And the detective in your interview told you that he was listing you as a suspect in the capital murder, correct?
Objection, hearsay.
That will be sustained.
Did the detective tell you anything about what could possibly happen to you if you spoke with him?
Yes.
Okay, and did that include being
Yes.
charged in the offense?
Yes.
And you still decided to talk with him, correct?
Yes.
And when you spoke with Detective Juarez, did you have any plea agreement in place?
No.
Did Detective Juarez promise you anything in exchange for your interview?
No.
at any point, well, you know what? Now I want to turn to the day that you entered your plea agreement. Do you recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Here we
And
go.
you gave testimony on that day, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And so on the day that you gave testimony, isn't it true that you testified that you had met Tamor McIntyre at the gathering at Isaac Ibarra's house?
Correct.
Okay. And in that testimony, didn't you further state that you had been with Tamor McIntyre from the beginning of April?
Big
Yes.
snitching.
Okay. In the testimony that you provided on that day, isn't it true that you stated you and Mark followed each other on Instagram and Tamor wanted a photographer for his album cover?
Yes, ma'am.
In the testimony that you provided, isn't it true that you stated that Tamor told you what kind of plans he had for the album cover, and that included Tamor McIntyre wanting you in lingerie and wearing a mask with weed and guns?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. In the testimony that you provided, isn't it true that you stated that you, the defendant, and Jalen Bell were staying at Jeremiah's house?
Yes, ma'am.
And you stated the people that were staying at Jeremiah's house was Tamor, Jalen, Desiree, Jeremiah, and Jeremiah's family.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay, and the testimony that you provided, you stated that you were the driver of that black Kia Forte, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And in the testimony that you provided on that day, you further stated that when you picked up Mark Saldivar, he had a camera and a backpack, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to object to ask and answer to cumulative. I also don't think it's a
It's asked and
proper
answered.
impeachment. They can't offer a prior consistent statement if we didn't attack that statement for fabrication.
All right, objection is overruled.
Thank you. Now, in the testimony that you provided on the day that you
Nice try.
entered your plea agreement, isn't it true that you testified that Tamor McIntyre was sitting in the front passenger seat of your motor vehicle?
Yes.
And on that day, you further stated Jeremiah was sitting behind you, correct?
Correct.
And you also stated on that day that Jalen Bell was in the middle seat, correct?
Yes.
And that the victim, Mark Saldivar, was sitting directly behind Tamor McIntyre, correct?
Yes.
All right. On the day that you entered your plea agreement, you further testified that when you all were at the stoplight, Tamor brought out the gun and pointed it at Mark, correct?
Correct.
You further stated on that day that when Mark didn't want to give up his bag, immediately Tamor started hitting him with the gun.
Correct.
On the day that you entered your plea agreement and provided testimony, isn't it true that you testified that Tamor used and pulled out the gun and stated to Mark, "Give me your backpack"?
Correct.
In the testimony that you provided on the day that you entered your plea agreement, isn't it true that you stated that you were telling Jalen, Tamor, and Jeremiah to just let Mark go?
Yes.
In your previous testimony,
Is it
you
true?
testified that Jalen pushed Mark out of the car, correct?
Correct.
All right. In your previous testimony, you testified that once Mark was pushed out of the car, he jumped on the hood of your car, is that correct?
Correct.
And in your previous testimony, you testified that you pulled over into the Chick-fil-A.
Yes, ma'am.
In your
Yeah, I want some
previous
Chick-fil-A.
testimony on the date that you entered your plea, you testified that Mark was on the hood of the car because his stuff was still inside the vehicle, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And in your previous testimony, you did testify that Mark Saldivar kicked in the windshield, and that's when Tamor got out of the car and shot him, correct?
Correct.
When asked on that day how Tamor shot Mark Saldivar, you testified that the defendant, Tamor McIntyre, opened the door and leaned halfway out and halfway in and shot Mark Saldivar, correct?
I'm going to object to ask and answer. If we're going to go through everything in the transcript, we could just offer.
You can make your
That's a
legal
fair point.
objection. The court will hear the legal objections and make a ruling. So what is your objection?
If I could have a running objection, since we're going through
What
every
is your
line.
objection?
That all of this is cumulative and asked and answered the previous, and much of it is not proper rehabilitation on impeachment by prior consistent statement.
All right, your objection.
If I may respond briefly, Your Honor.
Yes.
They have attacked this witness's credibility. They have alleged that
That's what
she
they're
is
supposed to do.
testifying under an improper influence or motive. And so under Rule 801E1B, I am allowed to explore this line of questioning with her.
Objection is overruled.
And
Wow.
since they further stated that they have no objection to the transcript coming in at this time, the state would offer State's Exhibits 132, which is the transcript, and 133, which is her recorded video statement.
Any objection?
132, no objection, it's prior sworn testimony. Objections to 133 because the proper method of doing that is to...
But my question is, do you have any objection? And if you do, what's the legal objection?
That the entirety of the statement is not admissible. It contains a great deal of hearsay from another declarant not present to testify.
All right, and which exhibit is that, please? The one that defense is objecting to?
That would be 133, Your Honor.
All right. Defense states that there's hearsay in 133. Any response?
If you'd like the detective's questions redact, I can do that over a break and offer.
All right. With regards to state's exhibit number 133, defense's objection will be sustained. And what is the other exhibit number, please?
132.
There we go.
And defense, you have no objection to 132?
No objection.
All right. State's exhibit number 132 is admitted without objection.
Yep. Judge Boyd, don't play. She does not play.
Ms. Reyes, at any point between the offense date until today, have you ever named anyone other than Tamor McIntyre as the shooter and murderer of Mark Saldivar?
No, ma'am.
Pass the witness.
Defense?
Briefly, Your Honor.
Yes.
We're about to get her up out of
Did
here.
you ever tell anybody that he has a gun right before Tamor shot him?
Objection, that's been asked and answered.
But she was overruled, sorry. Have you ever told anybody that he... Have you ever told anybody that you were yelling he has a gun right before Tamor shot him?
No.
Okay. You said that Tamor wanted this photo shoot for his album cover, right?
Correct.
But you told Desiree in Dallas that it was for the promotion of your career as a stripper, right?
No.
She said that last time. He already asked her that.
Just to be
She said
clear,
no.
you testified throughout this process that Jalen had the backpack and was going through it, and Jalen had the wallet, right?
Correct. Tamor had the backpack as well.
And you told the detective that
Yeah,
Jalen
they
threw the
both
phone
had
at
the
him.
That's what he said.
Okay, but that's not how you told the detective, right?
I said that's what Jalen said.
Okay, let's go with that.
Yeah, definitely asked and answered.
Call your attention to minute 3619. 3619. Oh, sorry, Thomas, can you?
Here we go. Thank you,
I'm sorry.
Maria.
Did you say that that's what Jalen told you is that it was thrown out of the car?
Yes.
Okay. You told the detective that you had no plan to rob Mr. Saldivar that day when you got in the car to go pick him up, right?
Correct.
That was Cap.
And
She
your
was in on it.
judgment of what Tamor and the other men in the car did
That's a lie.
is then based on their actions, not their words, right? To you.
Correct.
Nobody ever said, hey, Joanna, we're going to go rob this guy today, right?
No.
Okay. That wasn't something that you expected to happen when you got there, right?
No.
These men reacted to Mark when he got in the car and this thing
I don't
escalated
believe it.
and then it happened, right?
It happened at the stoplight.
At the stoplight.
Yes.
Okay. So when you told the detective you believed that this was a robbery, you're basing it off what you saw these men do at that stoplight.
Correct.
And so, at the very beginning of our questioning yesterday, you and I were talking about the fact that Mark had contacted you previously on Instagram, you blocked him, and then you made contact with him again, right? And then you were discussing this photo shoot with Mark, right?
Correct.
And in that conversation, you were telling Mark that it was about the album cover, wasn't it?
I don't remember texting him much. Tamor would text him as well.
Okay, but you definitely had conversations with him, right?
Yes.
And all of the conversations were on your phone, right?
Yes.
So let me ask you this. Did you give the police your phone?
No, because Caleb broke it.
Okay. So you didn't have a phone to provide the police?
No,
Okay. Did you have the broken phone to provide the police?
no,
Okay. Did you give the police your account information to log into Instagram?
yes,
Okay. Did you give the police account information to log into Snapchat?
yes,
Okay. So you don't know what happened to those things?
no,
Okay. Were you given any Instagram messages or Snapchat messages to review in preparation of your testimony?
no,
As witness.
No further questions.
This is witness excused or subject to recall.
He's trying to state your honor.
Subject to recall.
All right, the rule has been revoked. You're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone during the pendency of this trial. Make sure that you're available in case someone, either the state or the defense wishes to recall you.
yes, ma'am.
You may step down.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a brief recess.
We're going to take a brief recess. We got the ex-gripper out of here. What do y'all think about that testimony? Interesting, to say the least. Do y'all think she was in on it? Is she just this poor, innocent 18-year-old that was being forced to do all these things? Or was she actually a predator that drove the vehicle as a part of this whole scheme? Who knows, man? Let me know what y'all think in the comments in the chat. I'm going to skip through this in a second, but I got to read some super chats. And also, Yak Gotti is free, y'all. He's up out of there. And I put, scrolling across the bottom of the screen, y'all can see what he got. 10 years probation. I hate probation. It's disgusting. He did get time served. Hopefully he keeps his nose clean. Congratulations to Yak Gotti. So glad he's finally out of there. Man, and I'm sure we'll see some updates about that. Again, it wasn't live streamed, so there's really no way for us to see what went down, but I'm sure we'll hear about it as we go forward. All right, here we go. Slim Life is in here. Shout out to Slim Life. New Jersey's in the building. Says, I've missed y'all so much. I miss y'all. Much love. Shout out to Slim Life. Glad to have you back in here. Thank you for the super chat as well. Chris, just showing love with the 5-bomb too. Dang, Chris, I see you. I appreciate it, man. Y'all are showing so much support today. And then my guy, Les Cleaver, he says, hope you all are blessed. Great to see you all. Hope your day is awesome, man. Shout out to Les. He's always pulling up and showing support. It's good to have everybody back in here too. Congratulations to Yak Gotti getting out of there. I know his family is relieved, especially his mom. And it'll be interesting to see what the exact details are. And I'm sure we'll get his, I guess he'll have a final disposition too that'll come out. So I'll keep y'all up to date on that. Probation sucks when it comes to Fannie Willis. Y'all see Young Thug was also taking shots, but that was kind of self-inflicted. Young Thug, he just needs to keep his head down and leave it alone. Dora the Explored was in on it, and a total predator. That heifer is a liar. Were the other guys 15 also? I don't believe so, but don't quote me on that. But it doesn't matter to me. That just further more shows TAY is guilty. Yak needs to leave Georgia. Man, stay off the internet. Learn from what Young Thug just had to go through. I mean, that's scary, man. They're asking to get your probation revoked because you were on social media. It's not worth it. Was the Judge Whitaker? Yes. I'm sure she was more involved than she let on. Otherwise, why was she even with someone like TAY to begin with? Also, definitely a predator. Yeah, she can't beat that. I'm hoping she wasn't in on it. I was rooting for her yesterday. Fannie is going to be so petty. She still has to answer her subpoenas. No, she won't. Yak probably going to California since he's still signed to YSL. Yeah, hopefully Yak keeps his head down, especially for the next couple of years. Oh my gosh. All right, let's go ahead and get into the rest of these testimonies. Thankfully, we got this chick off the stand. She can go get his Xanax or something. Lord have mercy. She was tripping out. All right, here we go. And we should be able to get into day 7 here shortly. Got our next witness taking the stand. Hopefully we get some sound. There we go. There it is.
All right, everyone, please be seated. State, call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor, the state calls Officer Jose Bernal.
All right, could you raise your right hand? You solemnly, I'm sorry, just 1 second. Could I have parties approach just briefly?
Dang, we approaching already, Judge? Come on now. Come on, Judge Boy, you better than this. Here we go.
That your testimony will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, you can lower your hand. Take a seat. Please keep your voice up so that members of the jury can hear.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you'll state your name for the record and spell your last name.
Sure. Name is Jose Bernal. Last name is Bernal.
All right, state, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Officer Bernal, can you tell us where you're currently employed?
Yes, sir. I'm currently employed for the city of Dallas as a police officer.
And how long have you held that position?
Approximately 18 and a half years.
And do you have to go through certain training to become an officer for the Dallas Police Department?
Yes, sir. I had to go through an 8-month police academy. After that, I had to do a 6-month field training officer type of training. And then I subsequently made it out to the patrol set.
And so are you a certified police officer in the state of Texas?
Yes, sir, I am.
I'm going to go ahead and ask you, were you a police officer in the Dallas PD on May 7, 2017?
Yes, sir.
And were you dispatched to a scene at approximately 4:55 a.m. in the morning?
Yes, sir, I was.
Where were you dispatched to?
I was dispatched to an apartment complex in the on West Davis Street in the city of Dallas.
And do you know, can you tell the jury why you were dispatched there?
So we were dispatched regarding what I interpreted as a welfare check. The taxi cab company called and said that they've been trying to reach their cab driver after he had been pressing the panic button several times and they could not reach him over the radio.
And did you have anybody with you on this night?
I did, sir. I had a fellow officer with me.
And what officer was that?
It's Officer McComas.
And were you all, I guess, riding together or were you all riding separately?
We were riding together, yes, sir.
And did y'all make this scene?
We made it out to the scene, yes.
And when you made it to the scene, what did you do?
So we did observe a white van, taxi type of style van, parked within an apartment complex. And so we made contact with the driver to check on his status.
And we made contact with the driver. What did you do after that?
So it's like, hey buddy, are you okay? And basically the driver responded saying, yeah, this guy owes me $55 and his buddy hasn't came back to pay me.
And you sort of motioned with your hand, like a thumb, motioning towards your back. Was that what the driver was motioning towards?
Yes, sir, indeed. We didn't even know that the taxi cab had an occupant, a rear occupant, until he kind of hinted.
And
oh, this is when they caught him.
Ever make contact with this occupant?
We did.
And how did you make contact with this occupant?
So the sliding door on the driver's side, on my side, opened up. I believe the taxi cab driver pressed the button, but it automatically opened up. And that's when I saw the subject sitting in the second row seat.
The second row seat in the van. And what did you notice about this occupant of this van?
So this occupant appeared to be impaired. I'm not sure if he was half asleep or impaired. He was clearly impaired because you could tell he wasn't completely in a sense.
And did you make actual contact with this individual?
Yes, sir, we did.
And did you speak with this individual?
We did.
And did you ask him about if he had the money to pay the taxi cab?
We did, yes, sir.
And did he notify you of whether he had the money or not?
He had no form of payment.
And at that point, did you try to identify the individual?
I did, just to ensure we knew who we were speaking with.
And did he give you a name?
He did.
And subsequently, did you ever find out if that was his true and correct name?
So I ran back to the car computer and I ran that information and then checked out.
And please explain to the jury what you mean by not check out.
So the name he provided, we run into the system and I received a no records found, which is usually reserved for someone with no ID or someone providing fictitious information.
Mm-hmm.
And then did you make contact with the individual again?
So at that point, yes.
And what did you do at that point?
So at that point, I was looking at depth of service as a possible arrestable. So I wanted to make sure the scene was safe. So I told him to step out of the taxi cab. to ensure that he was patted down for officer safety.
And will you explain to the jury how you pat somebody down for officer safety?
Do you need me to stand, sir, or just talk?
You can just explain it if you can.
Yes. So we have to make sure we know where the hands are, just so, because the hands will kill you. So when I told him to step out, I told him to face the band, and I grabbed both of his hands behind him. And so I grabbed on his thumbs, because that way you can control the subject better that way. And as I did that, I went to perform my pat down, which is of the outer
Don't let him
clothing.
grab your thumbs.
And when I went across his waistband, that's when I felt the bulge and a metal object.
You felt a what?
Through your experience, did you believe that
Yeah, chill
what
out,
that object
officer.
was?
Yes, sir.
Hey.
What did you believe it was?
A handgun.
And at that point, what did you do?
So at that point, I quickly pushed him on his back and pressed him against the band. I said, "You better not move." And I looked at my cover officer and I said, "Cuff him quick," because I was concerned he may try to reach for the weapon.
And were you all able to handcuff this individual?
Yes, sir.
And did you retrieve what you believed to be a handgun in his waistband?
Yes, sir. It was a handgun.
And at that point, was he detained at that point?
Yes, sir. He was.
And this handgun that you retrieved, do you know what type of handgun it was?
It's a black 9mm Smith & Wesson.
And do you know the serial number of that particular weapon?
I don't recall. It's been 8 years, sir.
Okay, and that's what I was about to ask you.
Yes.
You have a pretty good memory if you memorized it. But let me mark. I'm going to show you what's marked as state exhibit number 34. Can you just flip through that and tell me if you can identify?
Yes, sir. Okay, yes, sir. I found the serial number.
Okay. And so the state exhibit number 134, it's not entered into evidence, but the fact is that a police report that you and Officer McComas made?
Yes, sir. This will be my report.
Your report? Okay.
Yes, sir.
And so I think the previous question was, do you have the serial number of that particular handgun?
I do.
And what would that serial number be?
So it's going to be L like Lincoln, E like Edward, J like John, and then it's 9244.
9244?
Yes, sir.
And at that time, was that
Yeah,
weapon
he
seized
definitely
and
used the
then
wrong
placed in property?
choice of words.
It was, yes, sir.
Oh my gosh. Y'all give me 1 second.
I'll show you.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Mark State Exhibit number 135. I'm going to ask you if you can cut that envelope open, please.
Anywhere?
Here, anywhere, yes.
And if that's, you need to move about the courtroom, move about the courtroom.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And if you can open it up and can you please retrieve what's inside of it?
Yes.
And can you please open that up? And can you please go ahead and open that bag? And can you please view what the contents of that bag was and tell me if that is the handgun that you seized that night and if you have a serial number on it?
Yes, sir.
And is that serial number LEJ9244?
It is.
Thank you.
It is.
And in this bag also is contents of looks like a magazine. Is that correct?
Correct, sir.
And is that the magazine, if you're aware, that goes to this handgun?
It appears to be the magazine. Yes.
Appears to be the okay, thank you. And Judge, at this time, the state would be offering state exhibit number 135 into evidence. Will tender to the defense for any objection.
No objections.
All right, State's Exhibit 135 is admitted.
And it's, I'm sorry, I don't know if I said it, but and its contents.
No objections to the content side.
All right, State's Exhibit 135, the contents are admitted.
And this is the handgun that you took off the individual that night, is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Now, at any time, were you able to truly identify the individual that you had detained?
Yes, sir.
And what was his true name?
Jalen Bell.
Jalen Bell. Now, that individual, can you tell the jury, well, what was this individual's height?
He was a pretty tall guy. I'm only 5'6", so I remember he stood over me pretty good. Just to look for my report here. So back then when we had detained the gentleman, he was 6'4" and approximately 240 pounds.
And I see you looking down. Are you referencing your police report to decipher that?
Yes, sir.
And again, I understand it's 7.5 years later, so I understand
Correct.
that.
Yes.
And subsequently, did you arrest this individual named Jalen Bell?
Yes, sir, I did.
And this was on May 7th, 2017?
Yes, sir.
And what did you arrest him for?
So we arrested him for the gun. He had a little bit of marijuana on his person. We arrested him for a warrant and also for providing fictitious information as a fugitive from justice.
Thank you, officer. We'll pass the witness on.
Still wasn't a Rice Krispie.
This encounter occurred on May 7th, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you said at 4 o'clock in the morning or so?
It was just before 5, sir.
Okay, gotcha. And you said that you placed the gun in evidence?
It was my partner, sir.
Okay. Are you familiar with the place where guns are stored in Dallas County for cases like this?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Are they kept in a separate kind of an armory section for evidence, or is like sort of all the evidence all together?
No, they have a separate place for it, sir.
Okay. Can you describe that place for the jury?
Well, they do kind of refer to it as an armory, and they do have it more on the back side of the location, which is referred to as the Baylor property room.
Okay. Y'all don't do maintenance on guns that are kept there, do you?
That's, I would not know how to answer that, sir. I don't know that part.
Okay. You do know generally that it's important to keep evidence of the state that it's found in, right?
I would think so, yes.
I'll pass the witness.
Any other questions? May this officer be released, Your Honor?
Is this
Yes,
an
sir.
excuse?
Yes.
Are the rules and vote you're not allowed to discuss your testimony?
Yes, ma'am.
During the pendency of this trial?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
I'll make sure you
another
take
quick
my
witness.
Oh.
We're moving right along through this trial.
And if you all want to make sure the evidence is packaged, I go.
Let's get the next witness up here.
So members of the jury can hear.
See what he's
If you'll
talking
state your
about.
name for the record and spell your last name, please.
Yes, Your Honor. My name is David Pendleton. That's Pendleton.
All right, state you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Middleton, can you please just tell the jury what your occupation is?
I'm a firearms examiner at the Bexar County Criminal Investigation Laboratory. Most people just call it the crime lab.
And can you just explain to them what that entails?
On a daily basis, I'm going to examine evidence submitted to the laboratory, usually from criminal cases, that would include things such as firearms, ammunition, and ammunition components, such as fired cartridge cases or fired bullets. And I would try and make a determination if those items were fired in certain firearms.
And how long have you been working at the Bexar County Lab?
A little over 19 years.
And is this the Bexar County Lab, is it an accredited laboratory?
Yes, sir.
And can you explain to the jury just what that means?
Yeah, because I don't know what an accredited laboratory.
Yes, sir. We're accredited by the by ANAB. It stands for ANSI National Accreditation Board. And essentially, what accreditation means is that you have standard operating procedures that are accepted within the scientific community, and you follow those procedures.
And I'm assuming that you have to go through certain training, education to get to this position. Can you explain to the jury and tell them some of the training and education, if you can?
Yes, sir. As far as education, I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and a master's degree in justice policy, both from the University of Texas at San Antonio. I'm also a member of the Association of Firearm and Tool Mark Examiners, and I'm certified in the area of firearms identification by that organization. Majority of our training is actually within the laboratory. It takes several years, actually. We also conduct outside annual training when we can attend, and I'm also yearly proficiency tested by an outside agency, and as well as I'm required to maintain a license by the state of Texas.
Thank you.
Nice.
And have you testified as an expert before?
Yes, sir.
can you tell the jury how many times?
Somewhere around 100.
And I guess
They never know. They just know they hate it.
Education, as in conferences or other type of continuing education to keep up with the times?
Yes, sir. As part of our licensing requirement, we're required to conduct, forgive me, I can't remember if it's 16, 24, or 32 hours, but there's a certain amount of hours that you have to complete within a 2-year period in order to renew your license. And also for certification, which I maintain through the organization that I mentioned, every 5 years we have to submit to recertify, and it takes quite a number of continuing education credits.
And the techniques and procedures that you use, are they accepted in your field of expertise?
Yes, sir.
Well, can you now just tell the jury, explain to them what a firearm is?
A firearm is essentially a tool, but this tool has a barrel in which a projectile can be launched through the combustion of gases.
And are there different types of firearms?
Yes, sir.
And not to go over how many, there's many, but I'd like to go in particular in the 2 general categories of handguns. Can you describe to the jury the 2 different categories, if there is 2 different categories of firearms for handguns?
Yes, sir. Handguns differ from the other type of firearm, which is either rifle or shotgun, which is shoulder fired. Handguns are meant to be held in one hand. There are 2 types that we generally refer to. One is a pistol, which is designed to fire ammunition and automatically load another cartridge for firing. The other is a revolver, in which cartridges are manually loaded into a cylinder and fired in that cylinder.
I'm going to show you what's been marked exhibit number 36 and 37 for demonstrative purposes. Can you tell me what you recognize those 2 types of handguns?
Yes, sir. One is a pistol and one is a revolver.
And these 2 different types, there's pictures, and again, these aren't the weapons associated with this case.
No, sir.
These are the pictures of weapons that signify, one's what we call the semi-automatic and one's a revolver.
Yes.
And do you believe that would assist the jurors in what you just described?
Possibly. Yes,
Your Honor, at this time, for demonstrative purposes, the state would like to offer state exhibits number 36 and 37.
No objection if the court would just give an instruction about what a demonstrative is.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, states exhibit number 36 and 37
That's a
are
good
not
question.
alleged to have been involved in this offense at all. It is merely photos, from what I can see from the bench, so that this witness can explain to you about weapons. Does everyone understand? So it's not evidence as a part of this case or for the alleged offense. Does everyone understand? All right, then, without objection, states exhibit 36 and 37 are admitted.
Thank you, Judge. May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to show you first what's marked state exhibit number 136. And can you please just describe to the jury what this is?
Yes, that is a revolver.
And this type of handgun, would it be able to, or one, does you fire it, is the shell casing ejected, or does it stay in the handgun?
It stays in the handgun. I don't have a pointer, so
You would like to step down to the elbow, and you can point from there.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor.
Just make sure you keep your voice up so the jurors can hear.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I'm gonna be honest. We've heard so many gun experts before. I can't imagine that we would hear anything shockingly new. And I'm usually not one to pass on some education, but I think we're gonna go ahead and skip to the defense's turn with this witness. Here we go.
Back in 2017.
Yes, sir.
And then there was a long period of time where there wasn't a gun in your laboratory to match up with that, right?
Yes, sir.
And you were asked to test a firearm against that shell casing in what?
Here, let me rewind it a little bit more for y'all. Here we go. We all know how guns work, and the shell casing comes out the right side.
I still have it.
Yeah.
It's probably. That's over. That's a little.
Ready, Judge?
Yes.
All rise for the jury.
don't think Judge Boyd smokes, I would be shocked.
All right, everyone, please be seated. And you're still under oath.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, Mr. Pendleton, so a moment ago we were talking about how that 9mm shell casing arrived at the laboratory back in 2017.
Yes,
And
sir.
then there was a long period of time where there wasn't a gun in your laboratory to match up with that, right?
Yes, sir.
And you were asked to test a firearm against that shell casing in, what, the late summer, early fall of 2024, correct?
Very recently. Yes, around probably a little before, but
Shout
my
out to
report is
everyone
issued on
watching on X,
September
too.
12th of 2024, so probably wouldn't have been too long before that.
Okay, fair enough.
Oh, August. Duh.
Okay. I want you to help me kind of just understand what I'm looking at here and what you can tell me about it. I'm going to first show you Defendants 11. And if you could just take a look at all of the pages of 11 and tell me what that is, if it's anything, and if you recognize it.
I can't see the actual numbers of. It looks like page printouts from our old system from 2017. Yes, I recognize them.
Okay, so when you talk about page printouts from your old system, there are a series of sort of drop-down menus like you would fill in a PDF with?
Yes.
Okay, so there would be options to click underneath all of those things?
Yes, sir.
And so someone has printed that screen as to what was entered with respect to this case, this one fired 9mm Luger caliber cartridge case?
Yes.
Okay. Now, on page, and you reviewed these materials when you were preparing your report?
No, because these are the older, I believe these look like they're from a previous version of what I'm using now.
Okay.
That's why I say I can't see the numbers or dates, so I don't know, is this mine?
If you can look there, does that indicate to you that it might have been from 2017?
I honestly, the date started, yes, it does look like it's 2017 date started, so this is like the original.
Okay, so this would have been the stuff from the original work that Mr. Saucedo did?
Yes, and to be fair, at that time, this system, we really didn't utilize that portion as much. It was more the handwritten notes at that time that he would have been using. Okay, so I'm going to call your attention to page 3 of Defendants 11, and I want you to talk to me about this stuff here. This is Mr. Saucedo's notes about the cartridge casing, right? Mm-hmm. It appears to be, yes, sir. Okay, but like the report that you mentioned, he's indicated that it's a 40 Smith & Wesson. Yes, he did. On that document, right? Yes, he did. Okay, and that would be in keeping with what I'll show you as Defendants 14, which was the released report that you were referencing earlier? Yes, sir, correct. Where he also states that it's a 40 caliber Smith & Wesson? Yes, sir, correct. Okay, and you were telling me a moment ago that in the remarks section of Defendants 14, where it says these items will be returned to the evidence receiving section, that your policy has been updated? Yes, sir. What's changed now? If an amended report were to be issued today, it would still say at the top of the report, this is an amended report, but at the bottom in the remarks section, it would have some type of notation that would say, this report has been amended to change this to this, and it replaces the report of the previous one, whatever that date would be. Something to that effect. So explaining and referencing the prior report that's being changed? Yes, sir. And that would just be so that there's no confusion about whether we're looking at the same piece of evidence? Correct, yes, sir. Right. Just to be clear, when it says here, there's a 1-1, and it says one fired 40 Smith & Wesson caliber cartridge case, and then E1. 1-1 and E1, are those your internal numbering systems for the evidence? The 1-1 is the our numbers.
Oh man, they're really on there with this.
E1 would be what would be on, that's the agency number.
Okay. And you're not aware of how the agency does its numbering system or whether there are any other E1s or anything else?
Absolutely no, sir.
Okay.
No.
Now, ultimately, I'm going to show you defendants 13. These are your notes from last year, is that right?
Looks like it, yes, sir.
Okay, so this would be your work without Mr. Salcedo's involvement?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Uh-oh. We lost the feed. Hold
You
on.
did go back and look at Mr. Salcedo's involvement, right?
Yes, sir.
Did it inform your opinion in any way?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier that this particular shell casing that we were discussing here, which is in...
That one, yes, sir.
Yes. That states... Jason, what the 9 from the scene is which evidence number? Okay, 35. I'm sorry. There we go. So states 35 is the original shell casing.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then states 109. Okay, no, I'm sorry. This is a 380 auto bullet, right?
Correct. It's unfired cartridge, yes.
Your understanding was this was found somewhere in conjunction with the case?
I assume I've never seen it before.
Okay. Now, Mr. Garahand asked you if you could fire a 380 auto in a 9mm gun, and you gave that explanation, right?
Yes, sir.
What about the other way around?
Can a 9mm be fired in a 380?
Right.
No, sir.
That's not possible?
No, sir. It's too large and too long,
Seems
so
like
it
we
won't
do
fit into
this
the
every
chamber.
case.
Okay. So if somebody has a 380 pistol and they tried to load a 9mm bullet into it to shoot it, what would happen?
It would more than likely jam. If it would even fit in the magazine, if it did, and you tried to cycle it, it would basically lock up.
Okay. Now, when were you made aware that there was a gun that needed to be compared to that 9mm shell casing in States 35?
I don't have the submission form, but normally on reports we put when it was submitted. So as of August 28th of 2024, so probably about a month, a little less than a month before I issued a report.
And do you know anything about the story of that gun that you were asked to compare to the shell casing? In other words, how it arrived at your laboratory?
I know a little now after the fact, after speaking with Mr. Garahand for pretrial, but before that, no, I did not.
Okay. Now, so at the time that you were doing the comparison, you were unaware of anything other than just, here's a 9mm pistol, it's a Smith & Wesson. We're asking you, can you compare that to the shell casing we recovered at a crime scene?
I believe so. I can't say for certain if I had maybe got an email to work the case and that information. I'm not absolutely certain, but I don't believe so.
Fair to say, there's nothing in your notes or your work about the analysis or the comparisons that you did where you listed that as a factor that would have impacted your analysis?
No, of course. I think I might have notated there was something about Dallas PD or something. Let me see, what was that?
So, you've since come to learn that the gun was in Dallas for some time and then came to San Antonio for some time, but never just got linked up with this case or the shell casing until not even a year ago?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, when you did your analysis, you took, was it the same brand of ammunition?
No. Let me find out.
Yeah, let's see what happened.
Just forgive me, these computer printouts that are a little bit harder to read than when they're on the screen. Actually, yes, I did use the same brand of ammunition.
Which is Blazer?
Blazer, yes, sir.
Blazer 9mm Luger ammunition.
Yes, sir.
There you go.
So, and you did that to just try and eliminate as many variables as you can from your analysis, right?
Yes, sir.
Because the way that a firing pin indents, say, a Winchester 9mm round might be different than the way it impacts a Blazer round.
Yes, there are going to be very slight variations, but there can be variations. So just to alleviate that, when possible, if we have our own ammunition collection, we prefer to use ammunition that, from our reference, that is as similar or close to as possible to any questioned evidence. That does not mean that if they submitted unfired evidence that I couldn't use it. We just prefer to use our own ammunition because we know there's no previous markings on it.
Okay. And so we understand from that idea that there are variables that can affect our ability to say things with a lot of certainty about how a primer is indented by a firing pin.
Yes.
Okay. And so you ruled out this gun as being the source of that shell casing based on what you call class characteristics, right?
Yes.
So no microscopes are involved in this kind of work.
Well, there is microscopes involved, but they're just not a high power, and we're not comparing individual comparisons.
Sure. You're like we were having trouble reading the word
Yes.
laser on that shell casing.
Yes, sir.
A microscope could help with that kind of stuff, right?
Yes, sir.
That's the level of magnification we're talking about.
Yes, as a matter of fact, if you notice the photo that's still on the screen, it says micro B. That stands for microscope B. That's the microscope that I used. And F14X means
Sounds
it's
like they
14
do a
times
good job of
higher.
documenting
Gotcha.
it.
So, in terms of the variables that can affect the primer indentation, you're familiar with guns. You've been out to a range and fired multiple rounds through a gun, I'm sure, many times.
Yes.
Yep.
And you've probably experienced the frustration any gun user has experienced where you buy a brand new box of ammunition and a round doesn't go off.
Yes, sir.
So there are variabilities in the manufacture of guns,
There can.
of ammunition, sorry.
There can be, yes, sir.
And that could include how the primer is seated, or whether the primer has been exposed to corrosion before it got put in the box, or
Yes, sir.
probably a lot of other things.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so, when you're talking about ruling things out on a class level, you said that caliber is one possible way to rule it out on a class level.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, like for example, if we have a 9mm cartridge, or I'm sorry, if we had a 40 caliber cartridge casing and a 9mm pistol, you don't have to do any additional work to say that on a class level that's not possible.
Yeah.
That's not the gun that fired the cartridge.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But you said that also things like primer could be, right? A class of characteristics.
The firing pin shape and the aperture shape is what I was referring to, yes, sir.
Okay. And so, like for example, some guns are manufactured in such a way that they leave a distinct signature on their firing pin, right?
Yes, so there are some that if you were to see that firing pin, because you're accustomed to seeing certain makes and models, you test fire, you look at the tests. There are times where you can pick up a cartridge case and go, oh, that's from this type of gun.
But not all guns are that way, right?
We got the
And actually,
gun
most of
experts
them
in the
aren't.
chat.
Most of them aren't. In fact, some gun manufacturers have been criticized publicly and in lawsuits because they don't make their firing pins more distinct, right?
There's a debate about that, yes, sir.
Okay. And I mean, part of that debate goes to just generally the idea of using a firing pin indentation like a fingerprint, right? There's
Yes.
some criticism of that.
In that respect of, I believe what you're referring to is micro-stamping the imprint. What they're referring to is putting a serial number very microscopically on the firing pin, so if it were to strike a object, you would have that serial number and say, oh, well, this was fired in that gun. It's a little more complicated than that.
It's interesting.
And also, they don't, part of that debate, which I don't really want to get into the debate, but part of that is they don't last very long.
Understood.
Yeah.
So, okay, when we're talking about we're talking about a mechanical tool. A gun is a mechanical tool, right?
Yes, sir.
And all of the parts of the gun are working against each other and principles like friction and so forth, because it's metal rubbing up against metal to make this thing work.
Yes, sir, correct.
And so guns have ordinary wear and tear as a consequence of that, right?
Yes, sir.
If you take a shotgun and you open it up for the first
What's
time
your
out of the
argument,
box,
brother?
it's probably very stiff and difficult to open. But if you've been shooting it for 40 years, it could just almost fall open with a tap of the hammer, right?
Yes, and that wear and tear will
Said
also
it
add
falls
to
open.
the individual accidental,
Oh, Lord.
accidental marks on it. Yes, sir.
And so, as the gun wears, that can impact how the firing pin works, correct?
Potentially, yes, sir.
Okay. And then other things might impact how a firing pin works on a specific occasion, like if the gun's shot upside down or sideways or at an unusual angle other than what a marksman normally goes for, right?
Potentially, yes, sir.
If a gun was dropped or damaged in some way, that could also impact how the firing pin works.
Good, yes, sir.
As far as corrosion is concerned, these are, again, metal objects, right?
What's your point, brother?
I mean, apart from what? The grip, everything on that gun is metallic in some way.
Yes, they're usually stainless steel. Yes, sir.
And so a gun owner has to take care of the gun, oil it, lubricate it, remove powder and other debris on a routine basis, or else the gun might start to rust or jam, right?
It depends, maybe not necessarily rust so much, but continued dirt and debris and stuff may make it operate not properly, yes.
And certain materials may start to cling to aspects of the gun because there's oil and grease on it, dirt, grime, gritty material, sand, those kinds of things could get in it, right?
Yes, sir.
And so if something has been sitting for a very long time and has not been cleaned or maintained, you would expect to see some kind of problem with the gun generally, right?
Depends on the environment.
Okay.
If it's just sitting in a drawer, I doubt any change is going to take place.
And to be fair, you don't know a lot about the story of this gun and where it's been.
No, sir.
Okay. And that was not something that was reported to you when you did your analysis?
No, sir.
Okay. And those kinds of issues related to corrosion or grime or issues with that could affect the firing pin's operation?
They could, but it's also one of, like you spoke of, the many variables. Those are also variables that we consider in parts of our examination.
Okay. So am I to understand that when you're looking at States 138, is that the exhibit on this one? Yes, sir. Yes. When you're looking at 138, the thing that you discussed at length, Mr. Garahan, was the breech face impression, which is the sort of broader ring around the really fine pointed indentation on the primer, right?
Yes.
The fact that the one on the right seems to have a larger gouge dug out of it on the right, you didn't seem to mention that. That doesn't seem to be a major point of interest for you?
No, it is. It's actually clear. I mean, it would be easy to show the actual firing pin of the weapon to explain why there is a unique shape to the test that isn't being shown.
Okay. Did you do any disassembly of this gun?
No, sir.
Okay. So that wasn't something that you notated in your report?
No, sir.
Okay. Were you aware that the gun had been entered into the database up in Dallas?
Possibly. I think there was some notation on the paperwork, possibly. I can't say yes or no, but it is a possibility, yes, sir.
And that didn't play a role in your analysis at all?
No, sir.
For them to have made that entry in the database, they would have had to fire an exemplar shell themselves.
Yes.
Up in Dallas, right?
Yes, sir. In order to enter a cartridge into the, if it for the gun, they would test fire it, yes, sir.
Okay. And you have not seen that exemplar spent shell casing?
No, sir.
Okay. And you didn't review the notes that were in the database about that spent shell casing in your analysis? You based it off the exemplar you made firing the gun in your laboratory?
Correct, yes, sir.
In a case where there's this much time between when a gun is alleged to have been fired, when the gun was seized, and when the gun finally got tested, would it be helpful scientifically to see what an exemplar taken from the gun earlier in time, closer to the time of the shooting, would have revealed?
Not necessarily, especially not in this case, no, sir.
Well, you say no.
Can I ask y'all a question? Is anybody doubting any issues with the gun? I get we're viewing this as jurors, but man, where are we going with this? Man got shot. We found the shell casing. We found the gun. He died. I'm not seeing it. Hey, maybe it's just me. I'll let it play out.
Not necessarily, but I mean, it would be a variable, right?
What do you arguing?
Potentially, the changes to firearms have been shown study after study to be very minimal over time, lacking some form of forced change.
But you're aware that there are also studies that have said that analysis based on primer indentation are unreliable because they're difficult to repeat, right?
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, your field isn't without some scientific criticism.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Okay. I'll pass it on.
Say it now, you're on? Yes.
Mr. President, you were, when Mr. Hunter was asking you a question about the indentation and everything, the firing pin, you stated that you could show with that particular firearm, I guess, a unique characteristic of this firearm. Can you explain that to the jury?
Yes, sir.
That's a great point.
With the Smith & Wesson M&P, I mentioned earlier that aperture, that circle that the firing pin sticks out of. In addition to that, there is a call it a scoop or a piece.
Oh man. Shadow Fox says, so is the defense saying the gun misfired and it wasn't intentional? If that's what they're trying to say, as a juror, there is zero, and I mean zero, reasonable doubt for me. I don't care how many gun experts you put up there that this was unintentional. I mean, let's just, come on, man. If that's what they're saying, then things are worse for TAY than I thought.
Piece of metal that is taking away from the breech face area around it, or in a portion of it. And that is put there by Smith & Wesson, they claim, to help assist in debris when you fire the weapon, when fire powers and stuff, to not collect. It gives it an escape route, so to speak. And when they put that there, when you fire a cartridge case into it, when I mentioned earlier, the softer primer kind of flows back into the crevice area. Well, it also fills in that area. I'm trying to find a hard word to explain it, but it basically makes this shape here on the end, if you can see what I'm saying. And that tells me that this cartridge case, and I know that for a fact because I fired it from that gun, this is a test, was fired a make and model type of Smith & Wesson. There's also a Glock that can have similar distinction because they do the same manufacturing technique, but that is not on the questioned evidence. Another change here, and I failed to mention it earlier, I apologize, but the firing pin itself, if you were to look at it from a profile, the test is what we call a hemispherical. Think of a globe, you cut it in half, it'll look like a bowl. That's the tip of the firing pin. We think of it like a bowl shape. Whereas the questioned one has more of a flattened surface. That's what we call a circular fire pin. It's a little tapered on the edges, but the base of it is more flattened. So these are class characteristics that are different from each other.
And with this particular weapon, did you notate any corrosion or any other variables that Mr. Hunter had mentioned?
No, sir.
Thank you. We'll pass it over to you.
Very briefly. You didn't notate that there wasn't corrosion either, to be fair.
Correct.
And you mentioned that there are certain aspects of this manufacturer's breech face that are significant to you, but you don't notate those in your report either, correct?
Well, actually I do, but you have to be an examiner understanding the notations. Like if you look at my notations, I'd say the firing pin type. I have to look at my notes, but I more than likely called it a teardrop because we generally see that shape, and that's kind of the shape that examiners have called it. Personally, I think it looks more like a comet, but we go with teardrop. Whereas this other one, I would notate that it's circular. Also with the firing pin impression, in my notes, you will notice that it will say M&P because that's the type of firing pin impression that I typically see in M&P, whereas this other one, the notation for it would say circular. So it is notated, but it's very difficult to understand what those notes mean unless you're accustomed to writing those notes.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that it's a teardrop shape on the right-handed breech face, right?
Yes.
Now, on the left-handed one, that is the one that was collected as questioned evidence, there's also more of a cutout, if you will, or an indentation trailing off to the right in the same direction as on the 2024 test, right?
Mm-hmm. Those actually are not from that type of, that's actually part of the firing pin. It's called the firing pin drag. And they don't always have to be the same, even for make and model, the same make and model. And what's happening is when the firing pin strikes the primer, it's going to stay stuck inside it a little bit. And so when it's getting kicked out of the weapon, it's going to kind of scrape its way out of there. And it leaves this marking here and this marking here on this one. So it's called firing pin drag.
So your belief is that the shell casing on the left is exhibiting firing pin drag, and the shell casing on the right is exhibiting a different shape firing pin? Is that not
No, they are both exhibiting firing pin drag. They are, however, the firing pins themselves exhibit different class characteristics.
Okay, and well, I understand they exhibit different class characteristics, but you were specifically calling our attention to
yes,
that
they're both,
aspect of it. They both have drag.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the degree that how many total class characteristics are you supposed to go through in doing a comparison?
You know, honestly, there's no set number. No one's ever asked that, but generally, it's the caliber, the shape of the firing pin, and characteristics of the breech face. So there's a number of different types of shapes to look for on the breech face, but yes.
So the things that you believe would fall into that category of class characteristic may differ from another examiner?
No.
Okay, but there's no set number of things that could be a class characteristic.
There's not a set number, but I would, in other words, another examiner would not look at this and say that that's not a class characteristic. Look at that, I know it anyway.
Okay, well, it sounds like it's a fairly broad definition, right? Would you agree, the idea of class characteristic?
It obviously, to be fair, it depends on what the item of evidence is to be looking at to consider, yes, sir.
Okay, and fundamentally at its core, because these are observations that aren't using extremely high magnification examination, there is a degree to which the training and experience of the examiner plays a role.
Absolutely. And to be fair, everything that I do is subjective, meaning that's my opinion.
That's Liz.
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, since witness excused or subject for recall.
Excuse by the state, Your Honor.
Excuse by the defense.
All right,
Okay, that is it from the gun expert. Sheesh. Shout out to him. Very knowledgeable. I don't think it changes my opinion on what happened and what I'm seeing from the evidence so far. So y'all have to let me know what you think in the comments in the chat. All right, let's move on to day 7. So we're going to get into the live coverage from today. Obviously, we're going to be on a little bit of a delay, but I got y'all. Let's see what Judge Boyd is talking about on day 7 and what witnesses we have on the stand today. Here we go. And I should be able to get it here. Yeah, I got him. About to get the jury in here.
All right.
There we go.
Sorry. Oh, no problem. Don't rush. When you rush, it just takes longer.
We're gonna skip ahead a little bit more too. Here we go. We got our first witness on the stand. There we go.
Name is spelled V-A-C.
All right, state, call your next witness.
Just real quick before the next witness, at this time the state offers states exhibits 59, 60, and 61, which were authenticated through Officer Halliburton, and defense has previously reviewed the exhibits.
No objection.
All right, states exhibit 59, 60, and 61 are admitted.
Thank you. The state calls Christina Vachon.
Christina.
All right, can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, you may have a seat. All right, if you
Who
make
is
sure
this
that you
lady?
keep your voice up so that members of the jury can hear, and also if you could state your name and spell your last name, please.
My name is Christina Vachon. My last name is spelled V-A-C-H-O-N.
All right, state, you may proceed.
Thank you. Ms. Vachon, how are you currently employed?
I am currently employed as the Quality Assurance Manager at the Bexar County Criminal Investigation Laboratory. I've been in that position for about 5 years now, and for the 15 years prior to that, I was a forensic scientist in the trace evidence section.
All right, and as a forensic scientist in the trace evidence section, what were your duties in that position?
I would examine items of evidence that would come into the laboratory. They were generally microscopic, but not biological in nature. So I would examine items such as fibers, did hair comparisons, paint, gunshot residue, footwear and tire tracks, did a lot of different types of testing.
All right, can you explain to the jury your educational background?
I have a bachelor's degree in biochemistry and a master's degree with a concentration in forensic science.
All right. And as a forensic scientist with the Bexar County Crime Lab, did you receive any specific training regarding gunshot residue?
Yes, I did.
Oh, here we go.
Explain that to the
GSR. It's time.
Yes. I attended the Lehigh University School of Microscopy for training on the instrument that we use. I also received training from the manufacturer of our instrument on the software that we use. And I received training in-house on the type of testing for gunshot residue, and that included reading journal articles, conducting supervised casework, and then passing written and practical exams before I was released to do my own casework in gunshot residue.
Okay. And have you
Nice.
testified as an expert witness in the area of gunshot residue before?
Yes, I have.
And has that been including in courts in Bexar County, Texas?
Yes.
Okay. Now, regarding the Bexar County Crime Lab, can you explain to the jury if the lab has any credentials or certifications?
We are accredited.
Okay. And in the Bexar County Crime Lab, do you have the ability to conduct a gunshot residue analysis?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm going to show you what has been marked as State's
makes
Exhibit
sense,
number
yeah.
17. Well, it's been entered into evidence. If you could just take a look at that and tell me if you recognize it.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Is that the kit that you received to conduct analysis for?
Yes.
Okay. Now,
Yeah, we're going to talk about GSR
as
in a
part of
second.
your record, do you maintain the chain of custody for your portion of State's Exhibit number 17 at the Bexar County Crime Lab?
The chain of custody is retained in our laboratory information management system. It's a database software system.
Okay. Now, regarding the State's Exhibit, did you receive that at the Bexar County Crime Lab?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall what date you received it?
I mark the item of evidence whenever I receive it, and I marked this as May 23rd, 2017.
Okay. And do you recall who you received that from? Was it an agency or?
The evidence was received into the laboratory from the San Antonio Police Department.
Okay. And once the evidence is received into the Bexar County Crime Lab, do you know where it goes?
Yes, it is kept in the evidence receiving section of the laboratory in the vault there until I'm ready for examination, and then I will take custody of the evidence and take it to our scanning electron microscopy room, which is where I do gunshot residue testing.
Okay. And so in this case, did you personally obtain the State's Exhibit for testing on May 23rd, 2017, which is marked on the exhibit?
Yes, I did.
All right. Did the kit have any unique identifiers on the packaging when you received it?
Yes.
Do you recall what those would be?
All items of evidence that we receive from the San Antonio Police Department have a barcode that is related to the agency number and the type of evidence.
Okay. And so the barcode on the State's Exhibit, can you please read that?
Your Honor, at this time, we would renew our objections as to hearsay and confrontation based on the predicate that wasn't laid about Kim Long.
All right, that objection is overruled.
You may read it. Well, and Judge, if I could just respond, this kit and sample was obtained by Catherine Andrews Imler, who did testify in this case, so that's my response.
Yes, Your Honor, but Ms. Andrews turned the scene over to Ms. Wong in process.
Excuse me, just 1 second. Excuse me, why are you all here?
Oh, he needs to come back here, Judge.
All right.
It's a light emergency.
All right, please be seated. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, the gentleman who came in has absolutely nothing to do with this case. Believe it or not, back there are restrooms, there is plumbing, and there may be an issue with the plumbing in the back, and we don't want any floods
Dang, the
coming into the courtroom.
jury clogged the toilet?
completely
That's crazy.
Ignore him in the sense that it has absolutely nothing to do with this case. And there's no other entryway for him to come
That's
there other
crazy.
than here. All right, so state what will you?
Can y'all imagine you're on trial and your life is on the line and Mario and Luigi walk in? They're like, what's y'all got going on? Yo, I'm over here. We're trying to take this serious, man. Just make sure your pants are pulled up, all right? Dang.
Well, I was just responding to his objection. State's Exhibit that the witness has was personally collected by a witness that testified, which is Catherine Andrews.
All right,
Our only response is that while we don't dispute that Ms. Andrews is the person who did the swabbing of the barcode, the question was asked to have read into the record was generated by another witness who's unavailable.
All right, that objection is overruled.
Thank you, Judge. All right, could you please read the San Antonio Police Department case number on the state exhibit?
It is 17089350.
Okay. And when you receive evidence at the crime lab, is it assigned a unique number within the crime lab for tracking?
Yes, it is.
And what would that be in this case?
In this case, that was 17-03268. And sometimes we do get separate submissions with different types of evidence. This was submission 2 that came in on this, with this agency number from the San Antonio Police Department.
Okay. And regarding the, did you get any information of who the kit was collected from?
Yes, it was labeled as John Doe on the outside of the kit, but the submission form that is filled out by SAPD and comes in with the evidence listed the kit as having come from...
Same objection, Your Honor, for sake of complication.
The submission form identified the person the kit was collected from as Mark Anthony Saldivar.
Okay. And when you take the kit into your custody, do you do any visual inspection to ensure there's been no tampering on the kit?
Yes, all items of evidence that come into the laboratory have to be tape sealed, so I ensured that the seal and the package are intact.
Okay. And so on May 23rd of 2017, did you analyze the contents of the State Exhibit 17?
Yes, I believe I received the evidence on May 23rd, and then I actually did the analysis on May 30th.
Okay, thank you very much. And on the day that you conducted the analysis, were you forensic scientist employed with the Bexar County Crime Lab?
Yes, I was.
And regarding State's Exhibit number 17, did you put any unique identifiers on there for your knowledge to ensure that it's the same thing that you conducted the analysis on?
Yes.
And what would that be?
Evidence that I take into my custody, I will write the criminal investigation laboratory number, the date that I receive it, the item number, and my initials. And then whenever I have completed analysis, I will make a tape seal and write my initials and the date that I seal it. And I see both of those here.
Okay. Would you please explain to the jury what gunshot residue is?
Yes, I have a model if I may use it.
Your Honor, and defense counsel, the witness has a demonstrative, but she does not wish to leave it here and for it to be entered into evidence. We would ask if she'd be able to use it.
No objections to the use or preventing its admission. She can use it.
Yes, you may proceed.
This is a model of a round of ammunition, and you may have seen it with the firearms examiner as well. I'm going to show you something different with it. So what happens whenever a trigger is pulled on a gun, it will release the firing pin of the gun. The firing pin will strike the primer cap area that you see here, the silver area.
Oh, come on. She's about to start
And that
cooking.
contains shock-sensitive chemicals. So whenever it receives that strike from the firing pin, there will be an explosion in this primer cap, which blows into the cartridge case area of the ammunition. Inside the cartridge case, there is nitrocellulose, gunpowder, and that will ignite and burn very quickly, and the gases expand inside the cartridge case. And it's those expanding gases that actually push the bullet out of the cartridge case and down the barrel. So whenever I am looking for gunshot residue, I'm looking for the components of the primer cap area. And it contains the metals lead, barium, and antimony. And those will evaporate in the explosion and then condense back together to form particles. And those particles are forced out of any open areas of the gun, and they will land on surfaces around the gun when it's fired.
Interesting.
And the analysis, how do you conduct it? With what instrument?
I use a scanning electron microscope with an energy dispersive X-ray detector.
Okay. And what
I
would
know
the
exactly
analysis
what that
involve?
is.
The analysis allows me to identify individual particles on the surface of the sampling device, and if they contain lead, barium, and antimony during the automated analysis, then I will go back and confirm that composition. I'll look at the shape and size, which is also important, and then I'll be able to confirm that gunshot residue was on that sample. And it will allow me to make conclusions as to whether a person possibly handled or discharged a firearm.
All right. And now, I want to... So, when you conducted your analysis of the state's exhibit, did you prepare a report that reflected the findings
Yes, I did.
of your analysis? And just regarding, did you follow all the protocol regarding the instrument when you conducted the analysis?
Objection leading, Your Honor.
Overruled.
You can answer.
Yes, I did.
And once you were finished
I might not understand it,
conducting
but
your
it doesn't
analysis,
sound
what
like
did you do with the
leading.
evidence?
The evidence was returned back to the evidence receiving section of the laboratory, and then it was collected by a representative from SAPD.
Now, I'm going to show you what has been marked as State's Exhibit number 139. If you could take a look at that and tell me if you recognize the document.
Yes, I do.
Okay, is that a copy of the report that you generated in this case?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and does it reflect your findings of your analysis?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and was it State's Exhibit number 39 created at or around the time that you conducted your analysis?
Yes, it was.
And are you a custodian of records for the Bexar County Crime Lab?
Yes, I am.
Is State's Exhibit number 139 a true and accurate copy of the report and your findings?
Yes, it is.
And just regarding, is that your signature or electronic signature on the report?
Yes, it is.
And is this report kept in the regular course of business?
Yes, it is.
We're tendering to defense for inspection. At this time, we would offer State's Exhibit 139.
Well, Amy said it. It's official.
No objections.
All right, State's Exhibit number 139 is admitted without objection.
Permission to publish.
Granted.
All right, Ms. Vachon. So I am publishing
This
State's Exhibit
attorney
number
is so
139, which you
soft-spoken.
stated is a copy of your report. Can you please explain to the jury what the result of your analysis was?
I identified 10 microscopic particles containing lead, barium, and antimony on the sample that was collected from the right hand of Mark Anthony Saldivar.
That's the
And I
GSR.
found 10 particles containing lead, barium, and antimony on the sample that was collected from the left hand of Mark Anthony Saldivar.
And is there any significance in the microscopic particles?
Yes, I will confirm up to 10 particles on each sample. So that means that there were possibly more than 10 particles on these sampling devices.
Okay. And so based on the identification of these particles, what was your finding regarding Mark Anthony Saldivar?
My conclusion was that based on the morphology and elemental composition of the particles I found, Mark Anthony Saldivar may have discharged a firearm, handled a discharged firearm, or was in close proximity to a discharging firearm.
Okay, interesting.
Now, in your training and experience, have you examined gunshot residue kits for victims of a gunshot wound?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And is it common for victims that suffered a gunshot wound to have gunshot residue present?
Objection relevance.
Overruled.
You can answer.
In my experience, it is very common for victims of gunshot wounds to have gunshot residue on their hands.
And why is that?
It is because as I said before, it's the force of the gases that are pushing the bullet down the barrel of the gun and toward the target. So most of the gunshot residue is going to be forced in that direction because that's where all of the pressure is going.
Makes
So
sense.
whenever a gun
It's the
is
plume.
pointed at a target, then a majority of the gunshot residue will be traveling in that direction toward that target. So if a person is being shot, it would be common sense, it would make sense for them to have gunshot residue on them if they're close enough to the gun.
And you can't definitively say, right, because you were not a witness in the case, but you can't definitively say whether the victim discharged a firearm or not. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. hypothetically, in your training and experience, if somebody
highly
was
unlikely.
wrestling with a firearm, would that result in them having gunshot residue on their hands?
Obviously.
That is possible. One of my conclusions is that the person may have handled a previously discharged firearm, and if they are struggling over a gun, then they would be touching the gun.
We pass the witness now.
Wow, that was quick.
Good morning, how are you?
Good.
A couple of things. Your conclusions
John
were
loves
that
his
either
experts.
he fired a gun, he handled a gun, or he was in close proximity to a gun being discharged, right?
Correct. Those are all ways that someone could get gunshot residue on their hands directly from the gun. They are the most likely, but they're not the only possibilities.
So the analysis you performed doesn't weight those possibilities. They're all equally as likely based upon what you know about the circumstances of what you received.
Correct.
Okay. And we can't really, in an ethical way, scientifically, try to apply more weight to one or the other. We can't just shoot someone and see how much powder is left on them, right?
Correct. And all guns
so
and
funny
ammunition and crime scenes are different. So you wouldn't even be able to repeat what happened at a crime scene in the lab to determine how much gunshot residue someone should have on them.
And in terms of the possibility that they were just in close proximity to a firearm, in other words, they got shot by a firearm and that's why they have residue, that would depend on how far away they are from the gun, right?
Partially, but there was a study conducted that postulated that there is possibly a supersonic wind that travels behind a bullet that gunshot residue can travel in.
That would
So
make
that
sense.
residue can be deposited on someone that's further downrange. But generally, gunshot residue will stay in the vicinity of the gun where it is fired.
That would make sense, especially if the bullet's spinning as it leaves the chamber. It makes sense that there would be something there. I'd be interested to see that study, actually. I'll have to go back and figure out
One that's further downrange.
who did that study.
But generally, gunshot residue will stay in the vicinity of the gun where it is fired.
And so there's a study that is considering that as a hypothesis, but it hasn't been established as a well-recognized practice or thing to rely on in your field, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I want to see that study. That's
You
very
indicated in
interesting.
your remarks that it would be recommended that a known firearm and ammunition be submitted if further testing is desired. Would that be because it could be conceivable to look at the concentrations of lead, barium, and antimony in the shell casing residue and compare that with the concentrations that you find on the subject, on the deceased's hands, and see if there are similarities, for example, in the mixture of the gunpowder for that particular brand of ammunition?
So these particles are heterogeneous, which means that they won't have the same concentrations of the different elements in them, in every particle. Sometimes we do see ammunition that has an additional element in it, such as copper or tin, that we can see in the particles, and sometimes it might be helpful to try to connect that back to the ammunition that was used in the crime that's being investigated. But generally, we have that statement there for cases where gunshot residue is not found. And we would be able to do a test fire to see if the gun actually expels gunshot residue, what type of gunshot residue comes out of the gun, because it doesn't always have these lead, barium, and antimony components. So it could be done in this situation because we did find 10 particles, because I did find 10 particles on each sample. I would not have recommended it.
Okay, but this is your report, right?
Yes.
And it is the final released version of the report, meaning that you're not going to be able to amend it later. This is what goes into evidence, right?
Yes.
And those remarks are on State's Exhibits 139, right?
Correct. Those are standard remarks that go out in every gunshot residue report.
And that kind of testing could have been done, right?
Yes.
It wasn't done to your knowledge in this case.
Correct.
Okay. I'll pass the witness.
No further questions, and witness is excused by state.
No further
Cool.
questions, witnesses excused.
I want to see that study, man.
Discuss your testimony or view anything about this trial during the pendency of the case.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, make sure you leave your microphone.
All right, shout out to her. She's amazing. I would love to see that GSR study about the sonic winds that she mentioned. I know. Okay, I'm a little nerding out. All right, y'all probably like, can we move on to the interesting stuff? I find this so interesting. I would love to see how they were able to figure out and calculate and measure what happens once the shot is fired. Interesting. Either way, let's move on to the next witness.
State, call your next witness.
The state calls Denise.
We've got Denise up next. Let's see what Denise is talking about.
Sorry, state your next witness.
Denise Serno.
Let's go, Denise.
Yeah, at this game.
All right, if you'll raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, you can lower your hand. Make sure you keep your voice up so that members of the jury can hear. If you'll state your name and spell your last name, please.
Denise Serenil, Serenil.
All right, state your name, proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, it's Serno.
Yes,
Can you just please tell the jury how are you currently employed?
I am employed with the city of San Antonio.
And where are you based out of?
I work at the San Antonio Police Department headquarters.
And what's your occupation?
I am a latent fingerprint examiner.
And how long have you been a latent fingerprint examiner?
8 years.
And I guess in the realms of fingerprinting or fingerprints or prints, how long have you been in that field?
I have 26 years experience with fingerprints.
And so roughly from like about 1998?
Yes.
Okay. And do you go through certain training and other, I guess, experiences to become a latent print examiner?
We have in-house on-the-job training, working day by day with the latent prints.
And do you also go, did you subsequently go to any
Nasty
type of
work.
course or any type of continuing education on prints and fingerprints and latent prints?
I
Yes.
hate fingerprints.
And are you considered a
Scare me.
qualified latent print or latent fingerprint examiner?
Yes.
And
What do y'all think is more scary? Fingerprinting used in criminal trials or DNA? That's an interesting question. I'd love to see what y'all say in the comments and in the chat. Both of them scare me, but yeesh.
can you just describe to the jury first let's just describe what a fingerprint is. I know that's probably pretty common, but can you describe to the jury what a fingerprint is?
A fingerprint is an impression left on the surface by the friction ridges of the fingers and thumbs.
And let me ask the question is, have you ever, in your roughly 26 years of experience, have you ever come across two individuals that have the exact same fingerprint?
I have not.
And can you describe to the jury, I mentioned it earlier in your title, latent print or latent fingerprints. Can you describe to the jury what latent prints or fingerprints mean?
A latent print is an unknown, unseen to the eye that needs some type of further processing to be seen.
And can you also describe to them what we consider, what your profession at times, you have latent cards that are presented to you. What is a latent card?
A latent card has the prints, the unknown prints that are left at crime scenes with detailed information on it.
Now, on these latent cards that you've reviewed, in this case and other cases, is there possibilities of more than one print per latent card?
Yes.
And I keep interchanging latent print and latent fingerprint. Are all latent prints fingerprints?
No.
Can you describe to the jury what you mean by that?
There could be fingerprints and there could be palm prints.
And in certain cases, are you able to identify also these latent prints as part of the palm?
I look at the clarity and legibility of the unknown print.
And let's talk about how identifying these prints. how are you, or what is the criteria for you to be able to identify these prints?
I look at the ridge characteristics to identify a specific point on my unknown to my known.
And is there certain, I guess,
What does that mean, lady?
I mean, like a better term, legible or clarity that you need to abide by?
We do 7 points to make an identification.
And is that a positive identification?
Yes.
And now, I'm assuming that means that if you have an unknown print, you find 7 points on there. But if you don't have a print to compare it to, I guess what do you call it, like a known print? Then it's just that you have a legible print?
We have a legible print.
And then at some point, do you have to show it, or rather compare it, to a known standard or known print?
Yes.
And is that, at that time, if you have those 7 points, are you able to positively identify that unknown print as coming from the known print?
Yes.
And that's in the general category of how you determine if an unknown print to a known print. Is that correct?
Correct.
Let me ask you about SAPD case number 170-89350. Are you familiar with that SAPD number?
Yes, I am.
And in fact, is that why you're here today?
Yes.
And did you review latent print cards for that case?
Yes, I did.
And can you tell the jury how many latent print cards that you reviewed for this case?
I reviewed 18 latent cards that were submitted.
And were you able to identify those unknown prints that you, well, let me retract that and talk about those 18 latent print cards. From those 18, were you able to identify any of those to a known standard or known print?
Yes, I was.
And can you tell the jury, out of those 18 total, how many were you able to compare and possibly identify an individual that made those prints?
May I have the evidence?
Do you have your reports in front of you? I'm going to show you what's marked State Exhibit number 37. If you can just look at that, it's been entered into evidence, and tell me if you recognize that.
Yes, I did.
And how do you recognize that?
I received it on April 24th, 2017.
And did you review it?
Yes, I did.
And can you tell me who collected this? Well, one, it's been entered into evidence. Can you hold up that card that's inside of this envelope? And can you turn it back and forth? And can you tell me, tell the jury, what is this?
This is an unknown prints that were lifted.
Sorry, go ahead.
At this particular scene.
Mm-hmm. And who was it lifted by?
This was lifted by crime scene investigator K. Wong, number 9440.
Where is K. Wong?
And
Where'd
on
she
this
go?
particular card, does it state where this fingerprint came from?
Yes, latent prints obtained from E4 Apple iPhone model number A1549 IMEI 356-99106-2443-296.
Okay, thank you. And so,
at this time, we would request a hearing under 702 for the witness.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have you step outside. You heard some evidence. In this case, you're not allowed to discuss with yourselves or with anyone else, to do any research, or to begin deliberations. Does everyone understand? So I'm going to have you all step outside, and I'll call you back in shortly. Everyone, please rise for the jurors.
All right, so we're going to skip ahead and get back to this in a second.
All right, defense.
Here we go.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Just a couple of questions. So, I guess to start off with, in terms of the principle that no two people have the same fingerprint, I understand that. In terms of the idea of being able to examine the prints and say that it came from the same person each time, you mentioned that there are 7 points of comparison required for you to make identification, a positive identification of a print.
Correct.
Can you explain what you mean by the phrase points of identification?
They're the ridge characteristics.
Okay, what is a ridge characteristic?
It is an action point that one looks for, and there are different types of points that we look for in a print.
What makes the human finger develop those points? Do you know?
I do not.
Okay. Are they something that is developed by the human body as a natural process, or can points of comparison occur because of things that happen to the human body? Like
We are born with these prints.
okay, if I cut my finger, or I have damage to my finger, or I grow older and my skin changes, or I have a scar, do those things impact the way that those ridges and points of comparison differ on a print?
It could, but the ridges do not change. They are permanent.
Okay, but they don't grow over scar tissue, for example.
No.
And so I mean, what you're saying is there are some variables related to things not part of the human body or how it naturally grows and develops and so forth that could change or at least obscure the ridges that are naturally there on our fingers, correct?
Could be a scar.
A scar, for example, right?
Correct.
Now, when you're talking about these types of characteristics, how do they teach you to identify them?
We have to know the fingerprints, and we look at the specific point. We have to know what we are looking for, and there are several different characteristics that we do look for.
Okay. When you are developing those characteristics, are you in possession of the known point of comparison?
Not all the time.
But sometimes?
Yes.
In this case, were you?
No.
Okay.
All right, so here's my question. Are you challenging her as an expert? Are you challenging the scientific method of fingerprinting, or are you just doing a cross-examination?
I'm challenging the method of fingerprinting, Your Honor. I'm also going to be challenging the way in which the methodology was applied on the occasion in question.
All right, so that is cross-examination. If you're challenging that fingerprints are not scientific, then ask those questions. If you're challenging that she's not in the expert in the field of fingerprinting, then ask those questions. But everything else outside of that, that's cross-examination. So is that what's happening here? You're challenging her expertise?
Well, Your Honor, respectfully, I believe that under Dahlberg and Kelly, the purpose of this kind of a hearing authorizes me to ask questions about the underlying scientific theories.
Respectfully, I'm asking, are you challenging her ability as an expert? Are you saying she's not an expert in her field? Or are you challenging and stating that fingerprints are not a part of scientific method? They haven't been proven, that I am assuming that there are fingerprints that can be the same from two different persons. What I'm trying to figure out from your question is, what is your challenge to this witness? If it's just for you to cross-examine, then that needs to be done in front of the jury. But if you're challenging her expertise and following Rule 701, 702, 703, then you need to have your questioning limited to 701, 702, 703.
Your Honor, as I was saying, I believe that to make the inquiry, the court must be apprised of what the scientific principle is, what the method used to apply that principle is, and whether that method was done correctly on this case.
Then respectfully, those are the questions that need to be asked.
Yes, Your Honor. I'll try
Thank
to
you.
be more tailored to that. Your Honor, also, just to streamline it, I'm also entitled under Rule 705 for disclosure of the underlying facts and data. So I would like to ask the witness a couple of questions about that, because it will inform my inquiry in short.
Well, haven't you already received that from the state?
Well, yes, but the record is entitled to be made all at the same
No,
time.
I understand that, but I'm trying to make sure that you have received that.
I am aware, I believe I've received it. I mean, I'd like to ask the witness
All right,
now.
received.
Okay, real quick, ma'am. You mentioned that you looked at a print that was taken off of a blue iPhone.
She don't recall.
Apple iPhone,
Okay, and that was collected on what date?
April 23rd, 2017.
And that was collected by Kimberly Wong, correct?
Correct.
And then you also received a comparison print, right?
I received it from, are you asking me if I had known prints to compare to my unknown prints?
Were you asked to compare that print that was lifted off of the phone to a known print?
Yes.
Okay, and you're going to render an opinion about that comparison?
I analyzed the print, compared it to my unknown to my known.
She keeps going. She keeps going off the script. I compared it to my unknown or my known. Oh God.
Determined they were one and the same.
Here we go.
Okay, and that print was from who?
This print was from Jalen Bell.
Okay. Okay, this is not the blue. This is, okay, sorry. Your Honor, I'm going to withdraw the objection. I apologize. I misunderstood.
All right, bring the jurors in.
It happens.
When was from? For some reason, I thought I saw it.
It's all good, John. We forgive you.
I apologize.
We still rock with you, John.
Angie.
They just coming slowly trickling from the restroom.
Okay. All right, we'll wait.
And we're missing Mom. Who's missing next to you?
Angie.
Angie.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Randolph, I believe I was asking you about state exhibit. Can you tell me the exhibit number on that? State exhibit number 37, and you had obtained the card, what you call the latent print card.
Correct.
And that's what was in this. And you stated that you were able to compare the prints on that card with a known individual. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you stated this earlier, just to rehash, just to make sure that we're on the same page. This was collected by Kimberly Wong on April 23rd, 2017.
That is correct.
And who was the individual that you were able to identify that made the prints on this particular cell phone?
I identified to Jalen Bell.
Thank you. And then I'm going to show you what's marked state exhibit number 106. Can you please look at that and tell me if you can identify that envelope and its contents?
Yes, I received it May 1st, 2017. There were 10 latent cards submitted in this check.
And who were they submitted by?
They were submitted by Crime Scene Investigator R. Hurtado, number 9414.
And did you have an opportunity to review those latent print cards, those 10 latent print cards, and were you able to identify, well, that's a compound question. Were you able to review those cards?
Yes, I was.
And on those possible cards, did you find any legible prints?
Yes, I did.
On those cards, legible prints, how many of those cards did you find legible prints on?
I found 2 cards with legible prints.
And I guess, since we're on that subject, there's 10 cards, and when I asked if it's legible, is that what you indicated earlier, that is a legible print, those 7 points that you have to find?
Correct.
So could there be partial prints on there?
There could be, yes.
and that under your qualification of a latent fingerprint or print examiner, you cannot determine a positive ID with less than 7 points.
That is correct.
But in this particular occasion, on 2 of those cards, you were able to identify a legible print, and were you able to compare those prints to a known print?
Yes.
And were both of those latent cards that you have legible prints on, did that come back to the same individual?
Yes.
And please tell the jury who that individual is.
Jeremiah Rodriguez.
Thank you. Judge, at this time, the state would just enter State Exhibit number 106 and tender defense for any objections.
No objections.
States 106 is admitted without objection.
And if you don't mind, can you take out the 2 cards that you identified that prints were made by Jeremiah Rodriguez? And can you please just hold those up and show them to the jury? That these are the prints that you identified to coming to Jeremiah Rodriguez?
Yes.
Okay. And then on the front of those cards, it has a brief description of where they were found. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And previous testimony, Raul Hurtado, the individual that lifted those prints, is that correct? That's who collected those?
Yes.
And he explained where those were located?
Yes.
Thank you. You can put those back in there, please. Now, that's a total of Kimberly Wong turned in 1 latent print card, and then Mr. Raul Hurtado turned in 10. You said 18. Where are the other 7? Okay, it's not in your evidence yet, but on that particular one, were you able to identify the legible prints on those latent print cards?
I was not.
And how many latent print cards were turned in?
7 latent prints were submitted.
And who were they turned in by?
BH number 9418.
Okay. And so, as a purposes of evidentiary value, you cannot testify to those cards at all?
I cannot.
I don't like fingerprints, man.
Now, we heard about a Jeremiah Rodriguez known prints. We've heard about Jalen Bell known prints. Were you asked to compare any and all these prints to other individuals?
Yes, I was.
And can you please tell the jury the other individuals that you compared these prints to?
Your Honor, may I get my notes?
Defense, she is asking to review her notes.
Oh, no objection.
I was given Mark Anthony Saldivar.
Okay, anybody else?
Tamor McIntyre.
And anybody else that you compared these to?
Joanna Reyes.
Thank you. Now, in stating that out of all these prints that you were able to determine that were legible, you identified 1 Jalen Bell and 1 to Jeremiah Rodriguez. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Nels. We'll pass the witness.
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, is this witness excused or subject for recall?
Just keep that statement on.
The room has been revoked. You're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone.
All right, how do y'all feel about fingerprints?
Thank you, Judge.
And if you'll just leave the
So that's the next witness. Really not too much there. Let me know what y'all think about this one in the comments and in the chat. Let's see, did I miss anybody in here? I feel like I missed a couple of y'all. I did. I missed a couple of super chats. Shout out to Touche up in here with the 2 bomb. Says, what are they suggesting was the motive? And I think I replied to that in the chat. Just saying it was a setup, a simple armed robbery gone wrong, unfortunately. And the man, Mark Anthony Saldivar, lost his life over it. Crazy. Slim Life just became a new member. Welcome to the member side Slitting Life. I appreciate you, and it's good to have you back in here too. All right, let's go ahead and keep it moving, and we're gonna get into the next witness. Let's see who we got up in here. We're moving right along too. Yeah, I agree, Slim Life. That's
Can you
why.
raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, you can lower your hand. You make sure you keep your voice up so the members of the jury can hear. And if you can state your name and spell your last name, please.
My name is Lindsay Patton. Last name spelled Patten.
All right, say it, you may proceed.
Ms. Patton, how are you currently employed?
I currently work for the San Antonio Police Department.
And what unit are you with currently?
I am with the Southwest Texas Fusion Center.
What are your duties in your current role?
In my current role, I manage 6 grants for the unit, as well as purchasing and other budget items.
Okay. In total, how long have you been with the San Antonio Police Department?
17 years.
Okay. And were you previously assigned to the crime scene investigation unit?
Yes, I was.
About how long did you spend in that unit?
13 years.
Okay. What were your duties as a crime scene investigator?
I would collect evidence, take photographs, take fingerprints, things like that.
Okay. And what kind of training did you undergo?
I appreciate you, Slim Life. Thank you.
When I was first hired, we get 3 months of training in the academy, and then a month of ride-alongs, and then I was annually trained after that.
Okay. Now, were you employed as a crime scene investigator with the San Antonio Police Department on June 6th of 2017?
Yes, I was.
And as part of your duties as a crime scene investigator back in 2017, were you tasked with obtaining digital evidence in certain cases?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And on June 6th of 2017, did you receive a cellular device to extract associated with the case that we're here for today?
Could I see my extraction report?
Yes.
Shout out to Rice Street. Shout out to Big Rice Street in the building.
Well, I don't have a printout of it, but I'll show you what has been marked as exhibit number 140. Do you recognize what this is?
Yes.
Okay, and have you reviewed that before?
Yes, I have.
And does it contain a fair and accurate depiction of the extraction that was generated in this report?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and that was for Kate. And do you have any unique identifiers on here to confirm that you've reviewed the contents of the disc?
Yes, my initials are on it.
Okay, and so you recall that you've reviewed it, correct?
Yes.
And it's a fair and accurate copy of the report?
Yes.
And that analysis is done in this case, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell the jury how you came into possession of the cellular device that you conducted the extraction on?
Sure. We have a secure lockbox in our photo lab, which is at our headquarters. And that day I took the piece of evidence out of the secure lockbox and I started to process it.
Okay. What did you search the State's Exhibit number 140 under? What authority did you act?
There was a search warrant.
Okay. And what program did you use to conduct the forensic extraction?
It's called Cellbrite.
And did you have training and experience with Cellbrite back in 2017?
Yes, I was trained by another CSI.
Okay, and had you conducted investigations previously with forensic devices using Cellbrite?
Yes.
Okay. And at the time, were you familiar with Cellbrite?
Yes, I was familiar.
And in your training and experience, did you find it to be reliable?
Yes.
Okay. Can you explain to the jury how Cellbrite was used in this case regarding the contents of State's Exhibit 140?
Sure. At the time you had the phone, you would plug it into it's called a UFED device, a Universal Forensic Extraction Device. And that device plugs into the computer that has the Cellbrite software on it. So you would take the phone, plug it into the UFED, which gave you some prompts, and you would go through the prompts, and then the extraction report would run. And you just kind of waited. It would depend on how much data was on the phone as to how long it would take.
Okay. And so in this case, regarding State Exhibit number 140, did you hook up the phone that you received to the Cellbrite toggle?
Yes.
Okay. And you followed all the prompts?
Yes, I did.
All right. And did a successful extraction occur?
Yes, it did.
And was a report generated with the findings of the cell phone that you received?
Yes.
Okay. To your knowledge, can the data that's extracted be manipulated in any way?
No.
Okay. And so,
Well, all data can be
this time the state
manipulated. Come
offers
on now.
Exhibit 140.
No new objections.
All right, State's Exhibit number 140 is admitted.
Permission to publish, Your Honor.
Granted.
Yeah. Yep. I remember Cellbrite.
All right, can you see that up there?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Now, if you take a look at exhibit number 140, what day was the report created?
It was created on June 6th of 2017.
Okay. And regarding the examiner name, who is that?
That's me.
Okay. And is that your badge number?
Yes, it was.
All right. Now, regarding the extraction start date and time, can you tell the jury what that was?
The start date was June 6, 2017 at 8:29 a.m. And the end time was June 6th of 2017 at 8:32 a.m.
Okay. Now, regarding the MSISDN, can you explain to the jury what that is?
That is the full phone number of the device.
Okay. And regarding the detected phone model, can you please go over that with the jury?
It's an iPhone 5.
Okay. And who was the owner name that was designated to the device?
It's TAYK47 iPhone.
Okay. And what is the IMEI number registered to the phone?
The IMEI number is a 15-digit number for every cellular device. It's assigned to every cellular device for the SIM slot.
Okay. And what was it in this case on Exhibit 140?
It is 3585380563869112.
Sorry about that. And regarding the Apple IDs that were registered to the device, can you explain to the jury what those are?
They are emails, the first being sonofsaam@aol.com, and the other being tayk47u@icloud.com.
Okay. And regarding call logs, if you would just give me a second.
I want to know if there were any calls to the ex-stripper.
You've previously reviewed this, and this is a fair and accurate depiction of the calls that were contained on the device, correct?
Yes.
And regarding this iMessage, can you explain to the jury regarding the item listed as 67, who the participants in that iMessage thread were?
It's going to be tayk47u@icloud.com.
Okay, and the other number associated with the text thread?
The other number is 1-469-347-3233.
Okay. And regarding this message on February 3rd of 2017 at 2:56 p.m., who does it appear sent that message?
The tayk47u@icloud.com.
And what does that message say?
It says, "Who is this?"
Okay, and then regarding the message sent directly after that, on February 3rd of 2017 at 2:57 p.m., can you say what number was associated with that chat?
It's 1-469-347-3233.
And what does that say?
Pimp Easy.
Okay. And regarding the message at February 3rd of 2017 at 2:57, is that an image that was sent to the iPhone?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, Stacey, you can use your microphone?
This one?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it'll make it easier for everyone to hear. It's not working.
I'll try to talk louder.
All right, thank you. Very good. All right, thanks.
All right, Ms. Patton, and as part of the reviews of State's Exhibit number 140, there were multiple images that were contained within the phone. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And just regarding this image for demonstrative purpose, regarding line 13, can you identify when that photo was taken?
It was taken on February 10th of 2017
Okay.
at 5:02 p.m.
What are they
Regarding
talking
State's
about?
Exhibit, or
Oh, they're talking about pictures.
the item listed as 140, can you tell when that,
Is that the stripper?
image was created?
That
It
better
was
not be the
created
stripper.
on March 3rd, 2017 at 3:16 p.m.
The poor victim stripper.
Line 141?
The extra.
It was taken on March 3rd, 2017 at 3:15 p.m.
And 142?
It was taken on March 3rd, 2017 at 3:15 p.m.
And 143?
Also on March 3rd, 2017 at 3:15 p.m.
And regarding line 144?
It was taken on March 3rd, 2017 at 3:14 p.m.
Line 145?
145?
Yes.
It was taken on March 3rd, 2017 at 3:14 p.m.
Line 146?
It's taken on March 3rd, 2017 at 3:14 p.m.
Line 147?
It's taken on March 2nd, 2017 at 8:38 p.m.
Oh man, how am I?
Yeah, line
I'm so far off the screen.
It was taken on March 2nd, 2017 at
I hit my
8:38
camera. I
p.m.
didn't even realize it. That's crazy.
And just, we've gone through this previously, correct?
There we go.
There are other images that are contained within the State's Exhibit, correct?
Yes.
And you would be able to tell the date and time that they were taken by looking where, if you could show the jury, please.
Looking right here at created.
Where my mouse is toggling?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Thank you very much. We pass the witness, Your Honor.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So what we just looked at is what's called a logical extraction. Is that right?
Yes, I believe it's also a file system extraction.
Okay. And there are different grades of extraction, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And logical or file system is the lowest level, lowest tier of extraction, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So, for example, it won't tell you what's in the deleted files or in the cache of different applications, right?
Yes, that is correct.
If you wanted to look at messages that were sent on platforms like
I wanna see
Instagram
what
or
those pictures
Snapchat,
were.
things like that, you wouldn't be able to access it.
No, sir.
And what ultimately this kind of a logical extraction produces is a PDF of
That's
what's
correct,
on
sir.
the phone, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's not like we can go in with a mouse and click on Instagram and scroll through or things like that.
Right, not with this version.
And it wouldn't give us detailed GPS data either, right?
I don't know the answer.
You don't know one way or the other?
No, sir.
That wasn't something you were asked to look at in this case?
Right.
Okay. In order to do a more thorough extraction, we would need what's called a UFED reader, right?
In this case, I believe a more thorough extraction would have required the passcode to the phone.
And then you would also need to do a full file system extraction.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then you would need to have special software to actually interact with the contents from that full file system extraction, correct?
Yes, in 2017, Cellbrite did not have that technology.
Okay, and it's proprietary software, right?
Yes, sir.
Cellbrite?
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, do you know how many thousands of dollars it costs to have that software at your disposal?
Objection relevance.
What's the relevance?
To
Yeah, what
explain
is the
how
relevance?
complicated it is to get more information from the cell phone.
All right, objection is the same.
Pass the witness.
No further questions, and she's excused by the stand judge.
Excuse.
All right, the rule has been invoked. You're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone during the pendency of this case or do anything. You understand?
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Make
you.
sure
All right,
leave
there we
your alcohol.
go. That is the phone records expert. Not too much there. It's interesting to see. I want to see some of those pictures and data, though. I wish they would show that. Let me know what y'all think about this. Shout out to my dog, Rice Street Man, 6-month anniversary. Oh my gosh. He said, keep doing your thing, ClassE. You know we don't miss. You know I'm not going anywhere, Rice Street. I appreciate you always showing up, always showing love. It's been a member for 6 months. Insane. All right, let's go ahead and talk about Yak Gotti. We've got some breaking news, y'all. We're going to get into it. Oh man, I got to sneeze. Hold on. Oh man, that was a good one. All right, let's give y'all an update on Yak Gotti. So I know some of you have seen what's going on with this already. Let's get my guy up here. Shout out to Yak Gotti. In case you haven't heard, Yak Gotti is finally free. We don't have any video yet on his release. I need to double check and see if Doug Weinstein has posted anything over on TikTok, because I know he loves to go on TikTok and make some content. But congratulations to Yak Gotti. Finally, he was able to. Hold on a second. Let me make sure. Oh, okay, I got it. Give me 1 second, y'all. I think I might have it here. Here we go. I think I might have found something from Doug Weinstein. Let's see what he says. Nope, he hasn't said anything yet. All right, yeah, it's good. Yak in court today. All right, so I'm gonna wait until we'll see something from Doug Weinstein later. Either way, Yak Gotti's finally free. We're not sure the exact conditions on his plea that he took. Obviously, they were related to an incident that took place in the Fulton County Jail while he was awaiting to hear his sentence, or hear what was going to be the verdict from the jury during the YSL trial. It turned out YSL trial came to an end. Yak Gotti was found not guilty on all counts, on both counts that he had in this case. Found not guilty, still had to go back to jail, came back for a hearing to figure out what was going on with the charges that took place in jail. There was some hold up with the DA's office. They were saying we need to figure this out. Ended up finding out that didn't need to be the case at all. It was just a ploy by the DA's office to do what they do best, and that's keep people locked up for no reason. So let's get into this article here from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, giving some insight into what took place in court. What do they say? He was acquitted in the YSL trial. Now he's finally headed home. All right. Shout out to Yak Gotti. He said, after nearly 3 years behind bars, an Atlanta rapper who was acquitted during his lengthy Fulton County gang and racketeering trial is finally going home. Diamante Kendrick, who performs under the stage name Yak Gotti, pleaded guilty Wednesday to a single count of aggravated battery stemming from a fight last year at Rice Street Jail. And y'all may remember as well, he was stabbed the day before the verdict was read, which was insane. The day before the trial ended, Yak Gotti was stabbed in the head in Rice Street, which is, thank God he's still with us, and thank God he's out of there too. Prosecutors agreed to dismiss all of his remaining charges in exchange for the lone guilty plea, and Judge Paige Reese Whitaker wished Kendrick good luck on his upcoming album after sentencing him to probation. We got to get Judge Whitaker over here. She's amazing, man. She does great work. I'm ready to go home, bro, Kendrick told Fulton County prosecutor Adam Abadi when he asked whether he pled guilty. Yes or no, Adam Abadi said. Yes, get you home. Kendrick's attorney, Bruce Harvey, and his client had a 10-year-old daughter he finally gets to see. said his client has a 10-year-old daughter he finally gets to see. He went through that grueling trial and he was finally acquitted, Harvey said outside the courtroom. It's time to let him out so he can see his family and be a productive member of the community. Kendrick hugged both of his attorneys before leaving the courtroom. Then he put his hands over his heart and smiled at his mother as he walked out. Tasha Kendrick, who has been waiting years for her son's release, clenched her fist and raised both arms above her head. In exchange for his guilty plea, Kendrick was sentenced to 12 years with 9 months to serve and credit for the time he had already spent in jail. The balance of the sentence will be spent on probation, Judge Whitaker told him. So that's 10 years on probation. After 2 years of probation, here we go, with no violation, Kendrick will be placed on non-reporting status for 3 years. After those 3 years, so 5 years total, the remainder of his sentence will be suspended, which is absolutely amazing. I know Diamante Kendrick can do it. I know he will do it, and still wishing him the best. Absolutely amazing. Kendrick was the only defendant in the nearly 2-year-long Young Slime Life trial not to accept a plea deal to get convicted of a single charge. Prosecutors seemed stunned months ago when a jury returned not guilty verdicts on each count he faced, including murder. The trial, the longest in Georgia history, centered on Grammy-winning musician Young Thug, as we know, who prosecutors alleged was the co-founder and leader of an Atlanta street gang. The rapper, whose real name is Jeffrey Williams, ended up taking a negotiated plea and getting probation in his case, but several jurors said after the trial that they did not think there was enough evidence to convict him. You know what the man said.
So what we have ultimately is that,
and we all saw it.
No evidence, none.
Defense attorney Nicole Westmoreland said she was thrilled Kendrick finally gets to go home after sitting through the long and brutal YSL trial, not to mention getting stabbed in jail. Imagine going to court every day for 2.5 years, fighting for your freedom, and then having to leave and go to your jail cell, she said, and hoping you make it back to court the next morning. Kendrick was stabbed by another inmate last year while awaiting a verdict in the case. At the end of the day, Mr. Kendrick was found not guilty of all the charges, but he still had to sit in a jail cell every night, Westmoreland said. We're happy it's over, and he's happy it's over, so he gets a chance to move on with his life. Kendrick was taken back to Fulton County Jail and was set to be released from there, his attorney said. All right, congratulations. And shout out to Yak Gotti. He's finally free. This whole thing is finally over. And I think he's going to move forward and keep his nose clean. I think he's going to stay out of the trouble. He has a lot of family around him. I think he has a good support system. And his mother being there, as they said, he has his 10-year-old. So it's exciting to see that he's finally free. He's just got to make it 5 more years. And then obviously the rest of his life after that. Let me know what y'all think about this in the comment in the chat. So happy for this man, and finally got to see Yak Gotti free. All right. Shout out to, and can we give some credit to Doug Weinstein, by the way, and the Abbott law firm? Doug Weinstein's first criminal case. He's 1-1 on criminal cases. Wow. Shout out to Doug Weinstein, man. All right, y'all. I think I'm gonna let y'all get up out of here. We will be back tomorrow. Y'all know we don't miss. We'll be back tomorrow with some more news for you guys. We'll get back into the coverage of the TAY trial as well, and I'm sure we'll have some more updates. I saw some news we've got to talk about Diddy. We might have some more YSL news as well, so I'll keep you guys up to date on that. Thank you to everyone who contributed, everyone who supported, everyone who liked the video. Over 700 of y'all liked the video. Oh my gosh. It really does help the channel grow, and I appreciate y'all taking the time to tap in with us. All right, Karen Reed trial is starting soon. Y'all get ready for it. It might be Monday. Wow, this is going to be a crazy one. We're going to be here covering that every single day. So thank y'all again for the love and support. Hope y'all have a great rest of your afternoon. And as always, you know what to do. Keep growing, keep pushing, keep it classy. We gone. Peace.